13.
O'clock.
Well, hey, everybody. It's Wednesday night. Time for our main show.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one.
This one should be fun. At least it's mostly not depressing like some of the other ones that we do.
We're going to talk about some of those famous psychics that you probably remember from back in the 80s, 70s, 80s, 90s. A lot of them ended up on damn talk shows, daytime talk shows.
Like from the National Enquirer earlier on. And then
Sylvia Browne, Miss Cleo. We're going to talk about them all.
Jeane Dixon.
Yeah.
Maybe Allison DuBois if we get to it. But
okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember this scene. The telephone fucking lines, fucking psychic hotlines. And showing up on not Jerry Springer, they show up on Maury Povich.
Montel Williams
yeah.
really seemed to be, particularly in Sylvia Browne's case, he seemed to be like the main platform for her nonsense. And somebody asked him about that. I don't remember who it was, but somebody was interviewing and said, like, why do you have this fucking fraud like on your show all the time? And he just thought she was hilarious and he just liked having her on. And I'm sure like the ratings were high, so
I like Montel Williams. Man, I liked Montel Williams' show because first of all he would always talk to you like he was America's dad. Mm-hmm. He was constantly, and he was a good dude. He wasn't a bad guy. Just,
he seemed like an okay guy.
Yeah, he actually seemed pretty cool, and he would just always take the moral high ground, and he was trying to give people morals. And the shows were fucking fun. I remember he had a lot of paranormal type stuff, paranormal type guests on his show, and because they were interesting, And this was daytime talk shows, but I always saw him at night a lot of times, coming off of work shifts and weird shit. They'd even show they made the things forever, so it was always like from that day when you watched them, and they were kind of mind numbing too. You can just zone out.
Yeah, you come home from work at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
You'd heat up your microwave food or Chinese food or
crawl
whatever.
into bed, you turn that shit on.
And then you just like sit there and like watching it.
Yeah. And so you some fucking outrageous people. It's fucking funny. This is just another time.
Yeah,
it's pre-internet.
I can't watch it anymore. Mm-hmm. I used to watch it at the time sometimes. But I didn't like I said, I didn't like the more outrageous ones. Like, they just kind of pissed me off. Because I don't really enjoy, like, watching people, like, screaming at each other or anything like that.
Yeah, that was Jerry Springer was like that.
Yeah, I couldn't really watch that. That and, like, who's that other fucker? Morton Downey Jr.?
Yeah.
Like, him just, like,
he wasn't around very long,
faces.
though.
No, he wasn't.
But Jerry Springer was around for a long time.
Yeah.
I ran into him in the French club. Excuse me, at the French Quarter at the club. And he was pretty cool. We were at the fucking convent. It was a goth club, and you had to know somebody to get in there. It really wasn't open to the public. It was a club in an apartment. He was running a fucking underground club and shit. And that fetish event going on, and fucking Jerry Springer was in there. And you guys are so great. He didn't stay all night though. He left.
Yeah.
But
he's making the rounds. He's a busy.
Yeah,
man.
he's making the rounds. He knew where all the fucking good clubs were, and could get into them.
Well, I mean, he's Jerry fucking.
He's
Springer,
Jerry fucking Springer, right?
So probably. Here's the thing. Like, I know that they had a lot of this kind of stuff on TV, but I don't... Any of these fucking psychics, quote-unquote, that are on TV and shit like that, I always thought to myself, I don't really believe in psychic powers, okay? It's just kind of like, just sometimes people have dreams that turn out to be true? Sure. Do sometimes people predict things that turn out to be true? Sure. Do I think there's anything magical or supernatural about that? Not necessarily. I think a lot of times it might just be coincidence, or maybe some people are more, intuitive than other people or something like that. But I always thought to myself, if there was a real legit person that was legit psychic and could actually like predict things like super accurately, why the fuck would they like go out and pimp themselves on TV and have to like do all this work? Just fucking win the lottery and just like fucking relax. You don't have to do anything. You know?
Well, that's not what they're doing. The whole psychic gig is kind of like being a mentalist or a magician. It has to be done in front of an audience. It's kind of like a con game. Although there is some like a mentalist could figure out what part of town you're from just by looking at you. There are guys that are pretty good by what you're wearing and what you're not wearing, and You know, how you carry yourself. They can tell, yeah, you're from the east side of town, aren't you? You know, just shit like that, you know?
Yeah, well, that's why I don't believe in a lot of the
Yeah.
psychics and stuff, because a mentalist, a magician, can
Yeah.
do the same shit,
Yeah.
and they are not purporting to have magical powers. They're just doing cold reading, or they're just, like, really observant, or whatever. So I just kind of feel like... And I was watching, like, yesterday on YouTube, they have all those Darren Brown shows. He's, like, a British mentalist, and he's really, really good. Like, he does cold reading, but he doesn't say that he has magical powers. He says it's a trick.
Yeah.
And that's why I have a lot more respect for, like, magicians and mentalists, because they're not
Yeah.
trying to lie to you and saying, oh, I'm talking to your dead grandma.
Well, the psychic as an act is a magician, basically. It's the same thing. Now, you kind of said, I don't believe that people are psychic. I believe that there are psychic people. The thing is, though, is that it's not anything you can make a living with. It's not fucking reliable enough.
Right.
And you know, I've seen RSPK, you know, recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, also known as poltergeist activity. You know, Jen's seen that kind of shit too. You know, now it's always when I'm around, when I'm upset, something could go flying.
Yeah.
You know?
You never know.
Usually through frustration. But the thing is that you couldn't get me to do that on command. I can't do it on command.
We'd all be in big trouble if you
You're
could
right.
do that.
It's spontaneous. That's why recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis. And it's just... So does that make me a psychic? Yeah. But I can't use it.
Yeah.
I've tried.
And I kind of feel
trying
like
foils
that
it.
if psychic powers, as we understand them,
They're not
really do
reliable
exist,
enough.
they're useless.
They're not... Yeah, they're not reliable enough.
You can't charge people $300
No.
an hour, like, to come and they'll tell you all this shit about it. That's,
Right.
They don't know nothing about you.
Well, I think no real psychic, a person who does have any kind of psychic abilities, I don't think that they would do it in a public setting.
No, that's
under
what
stress,
I'm saying.
in front of a whole bunch of people for money. It would be more like along the lines of you're driving in the car with the guy and you guys are friends, and all of a sudden he goes, "Look, I don't think you should get on that airplane today."
Yeah, it'd be
You know
shit
what I
like
mean?
that.
And they're like, "What do you mean? Don't get on that fucking airplane today, dude." You know, and then he
Yeah,
makes
like
sure
I got
you're
that
late,
too.
and then that airplane crashes.
Right.
All right. Now, would he be able to do that again? No, he probably wouldn't. Was it psychic? Yeah. Yeah. It was.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's like
Yeah.
that kind of shit happens.
Right.
Like, people predict
Been
shit like
confirmed.
that.
Yeah.
But it's not, like you said, there's no rhyme or reason to it. You can't control it. You can't summon it
Yeah.
whenever you want to. It just kind of happens
It
randomly.
happens spontaneously.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just, so it wouldn't be any use for, like, making money off of
Yeah.
it.
You couldn't get in front of an audience and perform.
Yeah, and, like, say,
that-
and
something.
know everything, like, about people in the
Right.
audience and stuff.
Right.
That is total bullshit.
When you give a psychic that particular mission, you've now put him under a bunch of stress, and psychic phenomena will not emerge. It doesn't emerge under those circumstances. The only person that can do it is basically a mentalist or a magician, because it's a trick.
Yeah. And they're really good,
They're
at,
real good
it.
at it.
They're like
Right.
way better at it than psychics are.
Yeah.
Because they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And
They're
like I
using a
said,
system.
yeah, they're using a system, and they're not, like I said, the thing, and that's why a lot of magicians are also like debunkers, because they know exactly, the techniques that are used to make people believe that you're psychic, because they can also do it. They're just not lying to people and saying that they're getting it, like, from the spirit world or whatever. You know what I mean? They're honest about it. They're saying it's a
Yeah.
trick. So, and like I said, the funny thing about, I was watching one Darren Brown episode. Like I said, he's a British mentalist, and he goes and, like, debunks the, or he, like, interviews them, like, so he does, like, an hour-long show. And the one that I saw on YouTube, he went to this medium, supposedly. What was his name? John Power, something like that. Like, and he's, like, evidently pretty famous, either in the UK or Australia, I can't remember. But he went to see him, and the funny thing was, the dude gave a reading to this woman, and it was pretty cringe. I mean, it's very vague. So he got a lot of shit wrong, stuff like that. And then Darren Brown, who does not purport to have any psychic powers, he's like, well, why don't I give her a reading? And it was, like, way better. And then, like, the lady even said later that she's like, well, even though he says he's not psychic, I think he probably is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So she believed him a lot more than she believed the other guy.
Well,
and the other guy was super pissed about that.
Well,
Super pissed.
If you've ever read any New Age books about psychic abilities, they kind of a person who's read books like that would arrive at that conclusion. He predicted something that was correct, so he's psychic. He just doesn't realize it. He's not admitting it to himself.
Right? Yeah, that's usually what they'll say. Like people that believe in that kind of stuff.
And it's because his disbelief in what he's doing allows him to do it, because he's not egotistical about it. His ego isn't in the way.
Right.
He's just playing around.
Yeah.
You know? But it's real. He really is psychic.
Because I have seen like some people that actually really did believe in the psychics, and then even after like it was a mentalist, and they said no, it's just a trick. This is how I did it, and they still are like, no, I think just you're really
in
psychic.
that Project Stargate book that I read. It was about the guys, the men that stare at goats. You know, the psychic warrior program that the Army had, which really did exist. I saw a guy that came out of that program who was talking about remote viewing techniques, and he said they weren't going into trances and envisioning things. They were doing nothing more than reaching into a bag, and they'd have an object, and I think you'd be like, "What is it I'm holding?" And and the guy would say, a building, or a truck, and it wasn't a truck; it was a circle. But they would just write down building, truck, circle, and this and that. And so the guy's answering randomly almost to this guy's questions. And from all those answers, they fit into a little fucking form that they had, which gave a description of the target, where it would be and where to look for it. It was the weirdest thing. That way it would be like double blind. And they were taking random stuff and then coming up with a target for remote viewing. So the guy who's coming up with the vision never sees it. He just answers these questions. What am I holding now? It's yellow. What color is it? And then they later on would fill out a form, and then they would supposedly say, okay, we think it's in this area then on the map, based on what it's the weirdest thing. So in some of the psychic thinking of how to get psychic information, some of it involves kind of like random stuff between two people, and then somebody else interpreting it and putting it together on a form.
Yeah, they kind of they didn't.
So it's like unconscious. Like basically, you're talking about like Carl Jung's unconscious, conscious.
Right,
what they call it?
The collective
unconscious or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. But one thing that a lot of psychics do, you see this with TV psychics, you see it with mediums, people that talk to the dead and shit like that, which is kind of sort of the same thing, but I guess not quite the same. One thing that psychics do in particular is they will make a fuck ton of predictions, a lot. And they're just hoping that one or two of them come true and everybody will remember those and forget like all the other shit that they got wrong.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that's probably how Sylvia Browne got so famous, because honestly, she's one of the ones that she probably did the most fucking damage, because she worked on a lot of, or said she worked on a lot of like crimes, like missing persons and murders and stuff. And somebody went through and did an analysis of all of the cases that she made public proclamations on, like, saying where she thought the person was or if the person was dead or alive or whatever. And they said in the 115 cases, she was right 0 times.
She was never right.
She was never right.
Yeah.
And matter of fact, just her predictions in general are almost like laughably like always wrong. It's almost like she's a negative psychic.
Yeah.
Because she just gets everything wrong like pretty much every time. But like I said, that's kind of the whole, and Nostradamus did this. They knew this like centuries ago, right? All you have to do is just make a shit ton of predictions. Just say a bunch of shit. Nostradamus was actually even smart enough to couch it in like weird, vague terminology, which a lot of psychics do that too. Yeah. And if you ever watch somebody like John Edward, who had that, what the fuck was the name of that show that he did, like the Talking to the Dead show, Reaching to the Other Side? I can't remember the name of the Other Side with John Edward. I don't know
the show.
But yeah, so like he was like super famous, and if you watch one of his stuff, if it's TV, they're gonna edit it to make him look better, obviously, because they want people to watch the shit. But if you see like unedited clips of it, like a lot of the shit they cut out is him saying, I'm getting something with an M, and like everybody just sits there and stares at him and nobody says anything. So he's basically just shotgunning information out and then waiting for somebody to respond to it. And honestly, a lot of the information that he gets, and the dude that Darren Brown was fucking with did this too, he gets most of the information from the person that he's talking to. Like, a lot of times he'll repeat it back to them, but like in different words. But they act like he just divinely, you know, got that information. I'm like, you just fucking told him that like a minute ago. Do you not remember? Like, it's on video. So I think people don't realize, because they want it to be true, like they don't realize how much information they're actually giving to that person. And a lot of it they're just like feeding back to them, like in different words and stuff. And like I said, they're just saying random shit. Like, here's the thing, like particularly with John Edward and a lot of mediums like that, it's like they'll be like, okay, I'm getting something with an M or Melanie or something like that, and like somebody in this huge audience is like, oh yeah, I have like a cousin's twice removed that's named Melanie that died or something like that. And it's like, okay, well, they're talking to you and they just want to say that they're doing fine. Like, they never say anything of any particular substance. Like, if I was dead and I was trying to like contact somebody, I would try to tell them like some important shit.
Yeah, like your husband did kill that chick.
Yeah. What, are you trying to tell me something, Tom?
Did you what does that do with it?
No, I'm just saying that was like a weird thing that you said.
No, that'd be funny to find out. You know what I mean? That the ghost tells you know, the woman that, yeah, your husband did kill that chick.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
See, that would make sense.
And that's another thing that always bothers me, is that you can tell that these mediums and stuff are just telling people what they want to hear, right?
Right.
It's like nobody
Never
wants to hear,
news.
hey, your grandma's here, and she said she always fucking hated you. She thought you sucked.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like,
that's what it
they
really
never
be.
they never said that.
Yeah, your uncle's here. He said he was the one that stole all that money from you.
Right. He never says that.
Yeah.
They never said it. Oh,
Yeah,
he's here. He's watching over you, even though he didn't know you that well in real life, because it's usually just some random ass fucking.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, they're just throwing names out and hoping somebody picks up on it. Yeah, I have a dead relative, I think, that's maybe named that or something kind of like that. And sometimes people, I saw one time where the dude said, like, what did the medium say? He said something like Mike or Michael, and somebody said, oh, I have a dead relative named Moira. I'm like, yeah, that's totally the same. It starts with the same letter. It's not even the same gender. What the fuck?
Yeah.
So, yeah. And he just picked right up on it. Oh, yeah, that must be it. You know what I mean? It's such a fucking scam. And I really don't know how. It's kind of sad, like, how much people fall for it. And it's kind of sad how much fucking money they charge, too. Like, because people will give them all this money. And I really...
It's entertainment.
It is, but I particularly... If people just go, like, to fortune tellers and stuff, like, oh, tell me if I'm going to meet somebody or blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't have a problem with that. But when they start getting involved in missing persons cases and murders, and they're starting to fuck with people that, you know, have just like lost somebody like in a horrible way or some shit like that, like that's kind of fucked up, and I don't really.
That's what Houdini was pissed about.
Well, yeah, I don't like that, and I don't blame people for it, and I see why a lot of magicians are pissed off about that and are trying to like debunk them, because they're taking advantage of people that are really vulnerable, and that's shitty. And and honestly, Sylvia Browne allegedly said to somebody that was it one of her husbands? She was married like 4 or 5 times, I think. But she said something like, somebody asked her if she felt bad about it or something, and she said no, because if they fall for it, like they deserve it or something like that. So I was like, well, that's nice. But we'll get into her shit, because she made some really, really bad, terrible predictions and made people like feel really bad, think their kids were dead, think their kids were still alive when they weren't, or the opposite. So, you know, not great.
She was a good reverse barometer.
Yeah, honestly, whatever she said, I would believe the opposite. Yeah. To be honest, knowing her track record. It's funny, I had forgotten how long Sylvia Browne was around, because right before the show started, I said I saw a clip of In Search Of, you know, which was one of my favorite shows when I was a kid, with Leonard Nimoy. And she was on there, like, when she was younger, like, back in the 70s. I was like, holy shit, I forgot she'd been around for that long. Because I just remember her from, like, looking like an old ogre kind of thing. Like, on Montel Williams and shit.
Little blonde bob of hers.
Yeah, talking all her bullshit with her raspy ass voice.
Yeah.
And then the Patricia.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is a broad right there.
Yeah.
She is a broad.
Yeah. 3 packs a day.
Yeah. That might have been what killed her. I'm not entirely sure. Should have seen that coming. See?
Yeah, really.
They never do, though. And actually, the funny thing about her, we'll get into Sylvia Browne in a little bit, but she actually did predict the age that she would die, and she was wrong about that too. Which I thought was she was way off. But yeah, I thought that was pretty funny. So okay.
They're just entertainers, if you ask me. I don't think they knew they weren't psychic.
Well, of course they know.
Yeah, they know they're not psychic.
I don't. I don't think. Although one thing, I think most of them do know that they're con artists.
Yeah.
Other than there's probably a small percentage that are like super delusional, and I think maybe the delusional ones might be better at it because they actually believe their own bullshit, which might make them better at it. I'm not entirely sure.
Ingo Swann believed his shit.
He did, yeah. Well, I think we talked about him because I was going to talk about him on this, but I think we talked about him on another show. So I was like, I didn't want to like repeat information because, like I said, we already talked about like Edgar Casey and all those kind of people too. But
I don't think Uri Geller actually believed in this shit.
Probably not. I'd like to do like a whole show
he was
about him.
Yeah, we got to do a Uri Geller fucking.
Yeah.
When they pressed him, he was like, "No, I can't do it," because another magician on there was foiled his ass.
Because magicians can do that shit too.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not hard. So, like, you're not.
I think that was Amazing Randy that foiled.
It might have been, yeah. And honestly, like a lot of people didn't like the Amazing Randy or James Randy because they thought he was like crotchety and stuff like that. I always really liked him. I've read like a lot of his books and stuff. Yeah, he was like real cranky and stuff, but he was a magician and he's just like, look, I don't like these people like using magic tricks to take advantage of people and like taking their money and shit like that and telling them to talk to their dead relatives. That's fucked up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which it is.
Yeah,
so,
Uri Geller was a fraud.
Yeah, big time.
He's a magician.
Yeah.
Pulling the wool over people's eyes. Spoon bending and stuff.
I wonder how many of them...
It's all the technique he was using.
I wonder how many of them actually study magic, or if they just kind of come to it. Because they don't seem to be as good at it as magicians are. So I don't know if they actually, like, study it, or if they just kind of come across it. Like, cold reading, for example, is something that you can learn to do. But I don't know if they actually deliberately, like, learn to do it, or if it just kind of organically evolves as they bullshit people, you know.
I think he trained himself to do it because he was using sleight of hand techniques and stuff. So he had some magician's skills, but he wasn't a full blown magician. Uri Geller.
Yeah, like I said,
the spoon bending things. There was some. I think he switched some shit.
Yeah,
he swished the spoons.
Yeah. There's other ways of doing that too, but but yeah, I think when they had, because I think when James Randi was on there, because he could bend a spoon too, and he's just like, big deal, I can also do that. And I'm not telling everybody I'm doing it magically.
There was one where he was doing that, though, and I think the head fell off the spoon.
Yeah, that's happened like more than once. But like I said, I think
it's broken before.
Yeah, if you bend it back and forth, so you can like put a little
it gets
crack
weak or
in
something.
It.
Yeah,
and then you can get, and everybody's like, ooh, you know what I mean? It's just, I don't know why, but like people are really easily impressed back then, I guess. Tammy said, not gonna lie, but after my son died, I probably would have loved John Edwards if he was telling me he was talking to my son. And see, like I said, I think that's kind of where the problem lies.
They know that's why they do it.
Yeah, is that they're deliberately targeting very vulnerable people that have lost loved ones and would love to hear from them again. And that's understandable. Like everybody feels like that. And the fact that these assholes are just like taking advantage of that.
Well, in the case of these psychics, though, they're doing a reading on a woman who's in the audience. She's not taking that woman's money. Okay?
No.
The psychic has already been paid for the appearance.
Right.
To put on this show. So it's not quite the same. You know what I mean? She's not taking money from that woman. She's just lying to her.
Yeah. Which is still not cool.
Yeah.
But some of them, but the thing about it though is that those TV appearances that they do bolsters their price. So people like Sylvia Browne and shit like that, she charged like hundreds of dollars just for like phone consultations.
Yeah.
And shit like that.
Just to talk to your ass on the phone.
Yeah. So it's like, so yeah, they weren't getting paid for those particular appearances on TV, probably.
But they had private shit.
But they had private shit that they were doing that it was like an advertisement for them.
Yeah.
And like I said, I just think, I don't know, it's just like really irresponsible. It just kind of like pisses me off that they do that to people. Like, when they're in a really vulnerable state. And like I said, I really understand that. I understand if somebody close to me died and I'd want to talk to them again.
Well,
like, I get it.
Clergy kind of doing the same thing too.
Well, yeah, and I don't like that either.
Yeah.
I don't like that either. It's just kind of like, don't...
People want to be reassured.
That's the thing. Like, I get it, but I don't want to be bullshitted. Like, don't fucking bullshit me. Especially about shit like that. It just makes me mad.
All right. Let's get into the first one.
All right. So, well, maybe I should get another, like, more drink first.
I'll make it
it's
for you.
kind of getting low, like my fucking shit melted. Let's see. Sebastian says, there are genuine psychics. I met one who was a friend of Steve Mara's. Alan was a cool dude. Yeah, like I said, I'm not saying that some people don't have some kind of ability in that regard. I'm just saying that, like, the ones that get really famous and have all these books that are on TV and stuff like that are just charlatans. You know what I mean? And like I said, it just kind of makes me angry because they're just taking advantage of people, and that just pisses me off. So yeah. Let me see. I saw something up here that I wanted to... Julian Pope said, I read somewhere that a psychic or fortune teller's psychic power is being able to read body language and expressions and respond accordingly, making the psychic seem like they're real. Yeah, and that's kind of one of the things about... that's kind of one of the things that makes mentalists and stuff like that good at what they do. They're good at, like, making observations and making assumptions from those observations, you know what I mean? So they kind of hone that skill. So people that are really observant and that are really good at looking at people's, like, or judging people's emotions or their facial expressions or something like that tend to be good at this kind of stuff, because you can kind of tell people where they want to hear. You can see where the conversation's going, and you can tell a lot about a person just by looking at them, what they're wearing, what their facial expression is, like what their body language is. You can, like, tell a lot about them, and people that can pick up on that are really good at this kind of shit. So let's talk first about Jeane Dixon. Now, I don't know how well remembered she is nowadays, but I remember this bitch was fucking everywhere. Like, from, like, the 50s and 60s on. She died in 1997, so she was around, like, all that time. She was always... like, you'd be in the grocery store and, like, on the front of, like, the National Enquirer and all that kind of shit. Jeane Dixon predicts this and that and the other thing. Like, it was always on the cover. You know what I mean? So she's, like, pretty fucking famous. And I think what made her famous in the early 1960s, or actually late 1950s, was that she supposedly predicted the assassination of JFK. Which she kind of did, but... not exactly, which, like I said, I'll get into that a little bit. But yeah, she was actually one of the psychics that Nancy Reagan talked to before Nancy Reagan dumped her and got another one.
We really ought to do a show about Ingo Swann, actually.
Yeah, we talked about him on another show.
We didn't do a whole show on him.
But we didn't do a whole show on him.
Yeah.
Like, because I remember...
he had an interest. He was doing shit for government and
I remember
doing
talking
remote
about
viewing
him on... yeah. Either on, we did a show about remote viewing, or we did a show about something like that.
Yeah.
And we talked about him, I think. I'd have to go back and look. But I know, because when I was looking for, like, to pick out psychics to do for the show, I was like, oh yeah, like, I think we talked about him already.
Ingo Swann believed his own shit.
Yeah. I'm sure some of them do.
Yeah, he believed his shit. Yeah. Although I seem to remember that he kind of had results, but maybe it was open to interpretation. I'd like to find more about it. Yeah.
Like I said, keep your shit vague. Nostradamus knew what was up.
Yeah, keep your shit
People
vague.
are still talking about his predictions centuries later.
Yeah.
So he was on to something. He's like, I'm gonna mix up, like, 3 languages. I'm gonna make it all, like, poetic and shit. Yeah. And they could be talking about whatever. Like, you can read whatever you want to read it.
It would fit a lot of different circumstances.
And people still think that's, like, prophecies and stuff. But it's just, and, that's kind of what I think psychics start getting into trouble when they start getting, like, real specific about shit. Which is why, somebody like Sylvia Browne, like, when she's starting to talk specifically about where this body is of this murdered person or whatever, that's when she gets into trouble. Cause,
it turns out that they're alive.
Because that happened a couple of times.
Yeah.
Which we'll get into. But yeah, so Jeane Dixon. Now, like I said, I don't know how well remembered she is nowadays, but she was, for a time, like probably the best known psychic, like in the media, like in the 20th century. And again, it was because of her prediction about the JFK assassination, which, like I said, well, it's not quite as cut and dried as that. So she was actually born in Wisconsin in 1904, although later on she said she was born in 1918 because I guess she wanted to be younger. She actually said, as a lot of them do, that she had had psychic powers since childhood, and that when she was growing up, a gypsy, quote unquote, gave her a crystal ball and read her palm and said that she would become a famous seer and advise powerful people. Wow, that was a good gypsy. She really did figure that out. I'm sure the story is probably made up. So she got married in the late 30s, like 1939. And then they moved to Washington, D.C., and they were in real estate. However, she kind of worked her way into, I guess, like paranormal or psychic circles, like in D.C. And I'm not really sure why. I guess her predictions were really good, or there wasn't a lot of competition or whatever like that, because she started going way up in the hierarchy, and soon she was being called the Seeress of Washington. And started hanging out with Ronald and Nancy Reagan. Yeah. This was like way back in the 40s and 50s.
That was just a rumor at the time.
And Strom Thurmond.
Yeah, Strom Thurmond.
Remember that old fucking, who lived till he was like 200?
Yeah, Strom Thurmond. He was an old Klan member.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was like in the Democratic Party back in the day, back in the Old South. Strom Thurmond. And it turned out he had all those black children.
Well, isn't that always the way?
Yeah, of course he had a black girlfriend. He was in the Klan.
As soon as like somebody comes out crying about kitty prawns or stuff like that, it's like, check their browser history because they're obviously really obsessed with this kind of shit. It's just kind of like nowadays everybody crying about trans people, this and that. I'm like, again, check their browser history. They have all kind of stuff in there.
Yeah.
Because why would they be crying about it otherwise? So she's hanging out with politicians and whatnot. Now, Nancy Reagan, obviously, even at the time when Ronald Reagan got elected in the 80s, people were giving Nancy shit because of her reliance on psychics and astrologers and stuff, which rightfully so. Because they're making like big decisions because of this, and that's like not even funny. They were. And so Jeane Dixon was actually her main chick, like her main fucking astrologer person, like at the time. But after a while, I don't know if they had a falling out or something like that, but she ended up like hanging out with some other astrologer lady named Joan Quigley, who I don't know that much about.
Yeah, I remember back in the 80s, it was rumored that Nancy Reagan and Ronald Reagan were being advised by psychics all the time.
Yeah, that's not a rumor anymore.
Not a rumor, it's true.
Absolutely.
So it was her that she was talking to.
It was her. Like I said, she got other ones later on, and I don't think she was the only one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that she was one of the main ones.
So she was kind of like Rasputin.
Yeah.
Kind of like an American Rasputin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here, and this, okay, now this is going to blow your mind. Because this blew my mind. I actually didn't know this. I knew a little bit about Jeane Dixon, like about the Nancy Reagan shit and everything like that, and about the JFK shit, but I did not know this. So, actually, Jeane Dixon met with Richard Nixon, who was then president in 1971. And he had a press secretary named Rosemary Woods. And Jeane Dixon would call her up or come to see her or whatever and give her all of these visions and like psychic predictions that she had and shit like that she needed to advise the president on, Richard Nixon, right? And at one point, Jeane comes in and tells Rosemary about all these Palestinian terrorists and they're going to kidnap somebody or shoot somebody or something like that. Richard Nixon got so upset about it that he went and talked to Kissinger about it, and they actually started the Counterterrorism Committee because of that.
Huh.
Because of a fucking psychic telling them that shit. I mean, that's good. They started that, but I'm just saying that was the reason for them starting it, because a psychic had said that there was like some bad shit could happen.
Yeah, it's weird.
Jeane also knew J. Edgar Hoover, who at the time was the FBI director. And he actually allowed her to use confidential information, like, in her speeches, like her public appearances and stuff. So that's how, like, connected she was.
Yeah.
Like I said, she was kind of a big deal.
Yeah. Well, this goes back to what I was telling you, that what the military ended up doing with psychic abilities. You know, like the Psychic Warrior program and the Jedi, the fucking men who stare at goats and shit. It was a great movie. You guys need to see it. It's hilarious.
We read it a couple months ago.
But I love the movie, and it's kind of accurate based on what I'd read about that unit. People believed in psychic abilities.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of a big thing. I remember even in the 70s, it was like kind of talked about as though it was like a real thing. Like, we're going to find out. This is going to be real.
The Soviets also thought it was real.
Yeah.
So because they were looking at it, we were looking at it. You know, and at the highest levels of government. Strange but true. Now, some people would say maybe they knew something we don't. I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Like, look at if you look at Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan, you know, he's like kind of a larger than life character in American history, and he and his wife were all into that shit. But the thing is, if you actually really look closely at Ronald Reagan, he was pretty much an average guy. He was kind of like an average Joe in a lot of ways. He was a good actor. He could deliver a great speech. He was very, you know, could make a really patriotic sounding speech. But he himself didn't really do a whole lot.
Yeah.
And like in his second term, he was mostly out of his mind. He'd gone senile. So other people were running shit for him. And
that's kind of what I think. I think people have a misperception, probably less so nowadays.
Yeah.
But back in the day, I think people had a misperception that people that were kind of like high up
and powerful
and stuff like that were somehow smart.
They were real smart and almost like superhuman.
No.
Dumb
people get powerful all the time.
Well, I'm not saying John Ronald Reagan was dumb. He wasn't dumb. It was just...
he was just average.
He was just a very kind of average guy.
He wasn't super smart, though.
Yeah, he wasn't this evil, bloodthirsty dude trying to fucking destroy the world in fucking, you know, nuclear fire or anything. He was kind of a friendly guy and was worried about the Soviet Union. We were in the middle of a Cold War, you know. But he also wasn't this great dude that defeated the Soviet Union. No, not really. No, not at all. The Soviet Union defeated itself, you know. I mean,
he kind of took credit for it a little bit.
Yeah, well, they kind of gave him the credit.
Yeah. That's
so he was like, yeah, I did that shit.
That's not how it happened, though.
Yeah.
I was there, I remember.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Even though he was out of office when that happened, but they were giving him the credit for it. I think he was dead by the time that it actually... they never would have collapsed if it wasn't for all that shit Reagan did. He broke their backs. No, the Soviet Union was fucking having real bad solidarity strikes. They were just strikes and glasnost. They could fucking openly criticize the government, which that was a big blow against the Soviet government. And nobody believed in it, so they stopped going to work. And that went on for like 5 years. These strikes, solidarity strikes. And eventually just couldn't take the stress, and it just broke apart. Not a shot fired. I was on duty when it happened. We were fucking amazed. The Berlin Wall fell, and it seemed like just a few weeks later, the Soviet Union was gone.
Yeah, it was really weird. It seemed like, I mean, I know that there was a lot of build up to it, but like when we were like growing up, it seemed like it happened like immediately. I'm like, holy shit.
Right. Yeah.
Like it seemed like it was like nothing, you know what I mean? Like it just happened immediately.
And, you know, a lot of the Republicans are like, well, yeah, that's because Reagan actually kicked their asses with all that Star Wars stuff. We fooled them. We spent the money on tanks instead. You know, it was, no. We were holding our own, but it collapsed because of internal pressure. That's what, you know, fucking Soviet economy didn't work. And the Chinese saw that and they changed their shit immediately. And that's why China's as powerful as it is now. It's a communist capitalist government. A communist government with a capitalist economy.
Yeah, I mean,
which that's
gotta have a combo.
That's a man bear pig. You know. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's kind of a good thing to do. Is like look at what other countries are doing. Yeah. You're like, well, we don't want to do that.
Yeah. The Chinese communist leaders didn't want to fucking
or if somebody's
die.
doing something really good, it's like maybe we should do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like it works both ways.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what I'm saying is this bitch was connected, right? Like she was like way up at like fucking J. Edgar Hoover's calling her up and shit like that and telling her secret information, which is fucking crazy. She's a fucking psychic.
Yeah.
And she came from like nowhere. She was like born in like fucking Wisconsin or something and just kind of worked her way into these circles somehow. She was just in real estate with her husband prior to that. I don't know what the fuck she did to get up in that. I don't know. I'm not clear on it. Now, probably her most famous prediction, sort of, was that she predicted the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Now, she made this prediction in 1956. It was in Parade magazine. And the prediction that she made, and this is a quote, she said the 1960 presidential election would be dominated by Labor, not so much, and won by a Democrat who would then go on to be assassinated or die in office, though not necessarily in his first term. And you see here how psychics hedge their bets. Yeah. She's saying, well, he'll either be assassinated or he'll die in office of natural causes, presumably, or getting hit by a car or something like that. And not necessarily in his first term. So it's like, so giving yourself like a wide leeway there. You know what I mean? Now, interestingly, so a lot of people, like, when he did get assassinated in 1963, like, a lot of people kind of look back and holy shit, like, she predicted his assassination, which kind of, but she did kind of couch it in, you know, some kind of vague language. However, I will note that prior to the 1960 election, as the election got nearer, she actually changed her mind and said that Richard Nixon would win in 1960. Wrong. So yeah, so she got that wrong. And she basically said, yeah, I'm absolutely positive that he's going to win.
From what I remember, people believed he was going to win.
Yeah, well, see, that's another thing too. Is a lot of times psychics will just go with
what
the flow and like what is more likely.
Yeah,
you're playing the odds. You're playing the statistics just to be on the safe side. So because it's kind of seemed like Nixon might win, so she said, "Well, I'm going to go back that horse instead." But she ended up being wrong, obviously. The fact that she did in 1956 say that a Democrat would win in 1960 and that he would be assassinated or die in office, not necessarily in his first term, that would seem to. But she made a lot of predictions.
Well,
that
I don't think
wrong.
He didn't even run in 1960, did he? Because the Watergate scandal got him and he withdrew, and he didn't run.
No, that was later.
It was later. Okay, that's right. That's right.
That was after he was already president.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
That was after he was already president.
Okay.
That was like in the 70s.
70s, right.
This is 1960 when it was Kennedy versus Nixon.
Okay.
But so as it seemed, you know, obviously that wasn't how it turned out, but she thought, I guess, that it seemed more likely that Nixon wins. She's like, I'm going to change my answer.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I said, psychics do that a lot. She was actually, and you remember that documentary movie thing, The Man Who Saw Tomorrow? That was about Nostradamus. That was Orson Welles, right?
Yeah.
I saw that a million times when I was growing up. On cable. Because it was Orson Welles, right?
Hell yeah.
And it's just like he's there and he's just very, and he just sounds like the gravitas.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, holy shit, this is some fucked up shit. Like, the world's going to end in like 1999 or whatever. Like, I don't even remember.
Every time that whole, if you guys have never seen The Man Who Saw Tomorrow, you guys got to see it. You can probably see it for free on YouTube.
I'm sure a million.
That whole movie was just the best con job ever, where they slowly start off with fucking Nostradamus's fucking.
Did they go with the Hitler thing?
Yeah, and Napoleon, you know, and they go through all this, and they talk about the Antichrist,
all the greatest hits,
the third Antichrist, and then he's going to all the past shit that he foretold that came true, and Orson Welles is, and then eventually he goes into the shit that's yet to come, you know. And the third Antichrist and the destruction of the fucking
that was like
New York and all
that was a big part of that fucking show.
And it did kind of sound like the World Trade Center.
Ooh, it sounded so. Yeah, but
and
not.
The Great King of Terror break fire down on the city, on the new city, and they gave like a fucking coordinates.
Anything.
It was.
That could mean anything.
Yeah, but the thing is that they showed that first, and then it happened. They showed it. They showed the World Trade Center fucking something, an atomic bomb going off in between them or above them.
Didn't the fucking Simpsons predict that too?
They bring a fire.
The Simpsons is actually a better predictor of shit than
like
any other thing.
And it was the Great King of Terror, brought fire down on the new city, something in then I think it gave it 1990. I think in 1999 let the seventh month arrive, and fucking so it didn't happen in 99 though, or did it? No, it happened in 2000.
2001.
Yeah, 2001.
And it wasn't the 7th month.
Yeah.
It was the 9th month.
Yeah, but it sounded like it was pretty fucking close. And
Not close enough, sorry.
Yeah.
For a supposed psychic.
Yeah.
But you gotta get it on the nose. Come on, Nostradamus.
The thing is, though, is that the movie, The Man Who Saw Tomorrow, if you go back and look at what those quatrains actually said, there's a lot of room for interpretation. That was a narrative that was assembled by somebody who wrote that movie. But he did a good job writing the movie.
Yeah.
And
yeah, it was super scary.
Yeah, super scary, and they made Nostradamus's quatrains sound like they were dead on, and that he could really predict the shit with high accuracy. But no, he didn't predict Hitler. He mentions Hister. We're talking about a river.
That's a river.
Yeah, and Napoleon, I think is one of the things that he mentions, which is kind of like Napoleon. But no. They pick and choose out of fucking thousands and thousands of these quatrains.
Like I said, Nostradamus knew this.
They're disregarding all the other ones.
Back in the fucking, when did he live? The 1400s or whenever the fuck it was? Mm-hmm. He knew it's like, I'm going to write a whole bunch of bullshit.
Yeah.
And if one or two of those match up with something, then I'm going to be fucking famous. Yeah. He was a pretty smart dude.
And there's a scene in the movie where Nostradamus supposedly predicts when his body will be desecrated and dug up. Remember that? And they show in the movie the grave robbers digging up Nostradamus' skull.
Yeah,
they're trying to drink out of it because they want to drink wine out of it so they can become psychic.
Sure.
And around the corpse's necks, it's got the day's date in which they fucking dug him up.
That didn't happen.
That's not in the quatrains. But it was in the movie.
They just made that up for the movie.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's good.
Yeah, that make you really believe, damn.
Because if people are watching that being like, holy
fuck,
shit.
He predicted what day it was. Yeah,
that didn't happen, though.
No.
They just made that up.
Yeah.
But it was a good story, though.
I think it was a legend.
Yeah.
It's not in the quatrains.
They just put that in there. And that's probably how they justified it, too. It's like, well, people are saying...
Yeah, there was a legend. People believe.
We could put that in there.
It has been said that...
We're just not going to say that, like, that never really happened like that. You know what I mean? Because it's a lot more entertaining the other way. The Norse Nut says, the famous old white lady, always on TV, predicted the West Virginia miners would be found alive on live radio. Yes, that was Sylvia Browne, actually. Then the news break came on and said they were all found dead. She didn't return after the break. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was one of the things. We're going to talk about Sylvia Browne in a little bit. But, yeah, I think what happened was she predicted that they would all be found alive. And then it turned out, I think they were all dead except for one. And then she might have came back after the break and said, oh, well, that's what I said. Like, I said that they were all dead but one. But it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was that kind of shit. They never, ever, ever admit that they're wrong. Ever. It's always kind of like...
ruin their brand.
Well, yeah. And I noticed that, too, like, when I was watching footage of, like, different mediums. Like I said, this John Powers guy and the, like, John Edwards and stuff like that. Like, if you ever... Like, if he's talking to somebody, and he's like, I have your grandma here, and she says something about a red boat. Like, do you know what she's talking about? And the person's like, I have no fucking idea what you're talking about. I don't know anything about a red boat, motherfucker. And he'll be like, oh, well, you think about it, because she's telling me very strongly that you know something about a red boat, and you have to go and, like, think, you know what I mean? You have to go look some stuff up. Like, it's not his fault that he's just pulling stuff out of his ass. It's your fault.
We have famous British actor Tom Baker in the country. The fourth Doctor Who.
The fourth Doctor Who.
Yeah, the fourth Doctor Who, yeah.
I'm honored.
Yes.
That's pretty awesome.
He's arrived in the TARDIS. With K9.
That's so cool. Tom Baker said the mirror names in the JFK and Lincoln assassinations were amazing. That was pretty cool. I remember being really impressed with that when I was younger. Phantom says the Simpsons creators are probably members of the Illuminati. Like, some people might think that because the amount of shit, like, if some significant, like, historical thing happens, like, somebody's like, hey, the Simpsons did a show about this, like, back in 1997 or some shit like that. Like, it's kind of weird, like, how they predicted, like, a bunch of stuff. I don't think they're psychic or anything. I just think they'd made so many shows.
Well, they also fucking knew what was going on in Hollywood.
And they know what's going on.
Like, fucking, they were bagging on, what's his name, Kevin Spacey?
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey, and they keeping babies in his fucking, keeping babies in his basement.
Did he get exonerated?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I
know a lot of people that have fucking accused him of shit ended up dead. Like 2 or 3 of them.
I haven't really been following the case.
Yeah, he's a gangster, man. He's well connected. You don't fucking level any fucking sexual assault charges against Kevin Spacey, you're probably not gonna make it to trial.
Oh shit! Now we're gonna get murdered.
Yeah, well, I'm just no. All you gotta do is just bring it on, bitch.
No,
Fucking,
I'm just saying. Well, don't say that.
I can fight. I can shoot. I can
Now, like tomorrow, like some people
bring it
like,
the fuck
turn
on.
up and-
Yeah.
But oh my god. But yeah, so I don't know. That's really weird though. But I think, like I said, I think it's just a case of The Simpsons making so many shows and knowing what's going on because they have to keep up with everything in pop culture and politics and everything like that. So it's just, and I think that's the thing with a lot of psychics too, is that a lot of predictions they make, because like I don't know if they do this so much anymore because I don't really pay attention to it. But back in the days of like where people read tabloids and there were like, TV talk shows and stuff, like they'd always have psychics on like at the end of the year making their predictions like for the next year. And pretty much like 90% of the predictions they made were shit that probably anybody could predict would probably happen. So they're keeping up with stuff. Yeah. And like I said, they're playing the odds. And the shit doesn't always happen, obviously, but they're going with what they think is most likely to happen. Like they're not getting any visions or anything. They're just, like I said, they're playing to statistics because they think that's going to be correct. But it doesn't always work out for them, as we'll see. But yeah, and again, I think that was the Jeane Dixon thing because I think she kind of got the vibe that like Nixon was going to win in 1960, and so she changed her answer.
That's right.
To that.
He ran more than once,
and he lost.
Yeah.
To Kennedy. So
he ran later. That's when he got busted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's right.
Like I said, the whole Watergate thing that was
yeah.
70s. So yeah. So here are some predictions that she made that were not correct. She actually predicted that the Soviets would beat the U.S. to the moon.
No.
And that World War III would begin in 1958.
Yeah.
She also foresaw a Holocaust for the 1980s. That there'd be this huge, like, global whatever. And after that, Rome would rise as the world's center of culture and religion. Also wrong. Pretty significantly wrong.
Sounds like she's trying to go off of Revelation.
I'm going to say. Well, yeah, and okay. So another vision that she had, supposedly. She had it in 1962. And this was one where she had a vision, this is great, of the coming age of Aquarius. Because this is really kind of what was in the air at the time, right? This is 1962. A little bit early, but okay. She said in this vision that she saw a glowing orb, like around the earth. And in this orb was an Egyptian pharaoh, I don't know which one, and Nefertiti, because why not? And they had a child. And they came out the orb, and the child was like the new Messiah. Like it had like really wise eyes and all of this kind of bullshit. And so after the unnamed pharaoh and Nefertiti dropped the Messiah baby off, Nefertiti went back in time to her time because she had come forward in time, I guess, to deliver the Messiah baby or whatever. And she interpreted this, because why not, as Nefertiti going back in time and getting killed in her time meant that it was the end of an era. So the age of Aquarius was coming, and there would be a new Messiah, and there would be like peace on earth, like all violence and war.
She's
and
probably
stuff
talking
would be
about
over.
Timothy Leary
Or something. And like no prizes for guessing when she thought this was going to happen. The year 2000.
Year 2000. Okay, yes.
Because it's a nice round number.
Yeah.
Like all kind of predictions
Change
were made
in
about
millennium.
2000. And really, not much happened in 2000. It was just kind of like a year like any other year. As every other year is. Nothing that exciting ever happens. Come on now. So yeah. No new Messiah in 2000. Not that we know of anyway. That was a long time ago. She also
Prince being played a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah. I don't really remember about 2000.
2000,
it was
00.
Yeah. It
They
was
played
just
it in
kind of
99
like...
and 2000.
All that Y2K shit didn't happen.
Yeah,
like all of
right.
this shit people
Computers
were
are
freaking
supposed
out
to be
about.
fucking locked up forever. Did happen.
I suspected that was not going to happen. But,
Yeah.
like I said, people make a lot of money selling books, like scaring the shit out of people. And outraging people. For some reason, people want to
It's fun.
pay a lot of money. I guess, not for me, it's not. But I guess, like, that's kind of like a personality type.
Yeah.
And I'm not that personality type. Like, people really enjoy being outraged and afraid of everything, and I don't really get that.
Might have something to do with fucking Western culture, too, because it's rooted in Christianity, really.
Yeah, I kind of think that's a big
yeah,
component. And because I've been an atheist pretty much my whole entire life, like, it doesn't really
Christianity
vibe with
has
me.
an apocalyptic worldview.
Yes, exactly.
So does Islam. So there's always the end times, the end times mythos. Which there's always an end time, because things are always ending and other things are always beginning.
Yeah, but it's not usually like some big fucking global apocalypse, is it? Other than the time the comet that fell and killed all the dinosaurs, but that was like 65 million years ago.
And that didn't happen overnight.
No. And like I said, it's always like a very slow...
Yeah.
It's not like something that's like, oh my god, one day we all wake up and like everything's gone to shit. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that asteroid hit and dinosaurs were still around for, I think, 1 million years.
For a long time, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not like just an afternoon and they're like, oh shit.
Yeah, it took a long time for the weather had changed. And
obviously a lot of animals still lived because we're still here. Mammals. Honestly, if that hadn't happened, we would not be here.
Yeah. Mammals around, they were just food.
They were just little.
Yeah, they're little.
But
mammals can survive cold, so.
Yeah. Well, and the fact that the larger land mammals, the dinosaurs, most of them died off, that meant that the mammals could get bigger and fill in all the available niches, and so that's when you see like the rise of the mammals, you know what I mean? So like I said, if that comet had not hit, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. None of that would have happened. Jeane Dixon also predicted that there would be a cure for cancer in 1967. Also wrong. And again, peace on earth by 2000 because of that whole Messiah baby thing. That did not happen. She also predicted, after she erroneously predicted that Richard Nixon would win in 1960, but when he actually did get elected later on, she predicted that he would serve his country well, not so much, and that Barry Goldwater would be vindicated. Also did not happen. Now, she wrote, over the course of her career, 7 books, including, this is my favorite, and I kind of want to read it now. She wrote a book about her pet cat, whose name was Mike the Magic Cat. And Mike the Magic Cat, allegedly, has ESP. He's a psychic cat. So there you go. I don't know. Maybe he's the one telling her stuff. I don't know. They also did a Milton Bradley game about her, like a board game. Jeane Dixon's Game of Destiny, which I kind of want to get that too. Yeah. She wrote an autobiography too. She wrote a horoscope book for dogs, because of course she did, and an astrological cookbook.
Okay.
Yeah. So now she was like super religious. She was a Roman Catholic, because I know that there's kind of a weird thing because some Christians think like psychics that's like devil shit, but
no, there was
a lot of psychics are super religious and think that God gives them their powers, and she was one of those people.
There's always been a connection between Christianity and what do you call it, astrology. Always.
Yeah.
There are 12 apostles for a reason. There are 12 apostles because there's 12 signs of the zodiac.
Yeah,
there's
it's very astrological.
All that stuff's in there, and it's when you look at that now, you'd say, well, that's like a modern Christian, well, yeah, that's the occult. Religion is the occult. Yeah, especially in Rome. Around first century when Christianity first started to be kind of like put together. Astrology in Rome was considered to be more like science. So when they start writing, all those books in the New Testament, there were Greek sources and Roman sources. All those books, well, not all the books, but a lot of those books included references and symbolism that came from, horoscopes, or what do you call it? 12 signs of the zodiac signs and everything. It's because in that era, they considered that to be science. So they're trying to make the shit high tech. And a lot of the other competing religions that went alongside Christianity, like Cult of Mithras, was kind of like cross between Scientology where you're paying to level up and making a motherfucker a wizard, and horoscopes. And what was funny about the cult of Mithras is that they show Mithras, and he has 12 disciples himself too. So, and a lot of the real old Christian church were built on Mithraic temples. So, and it's kind of hard to sometimes it's hard to tell between old Roman Christian friezes and sculptures and old cult of Mithras fucking sculptures, because they use a lot of the same symbolism, same imagery. So yeah.
Yeah, I kind of
astrology was actually built right into Christianity.
Yeah, big time.
Same thing.
And like I said, I always thought that was really interesting. Like, I know that some like modern Christians, particularly evangelical Christians, will get like super offended about that, but
it's right there.
It's true though.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if you're offended, but that's true. And like I said, I'm just kind of interested in the whole mythology, but I don't believe any of it's true, but I'm just interested in mythology, like where it came from and stuff. I find that very fascinating. So here's like I said, you just predict stuff about, hey, there's going to be an earthquake in California. Wow, takes a psychic to figure that out. You know what I mean? It's just like I said, you're playing the odds. You predict shit like that. But the problem I have is when psychics start doing shit like telling people whose children are missing, for example, which, like I said, we'll get into a lot of that with Sylvia Browne because she did a lot of that crap. Telling them that you think you know where they are or what happened to them or something like that. That is like really, really shitty, and I don't know how you could do that and like sleep at night, especially if you don't believe in your own bullshit, which I don't think a lot of these people do. Because Jeane Dixon actually did kind of dip into that too. She didn't just make predictions about Armageddon and people getting assassinated and whatnot. She was actually called on in 1967 by a couple, the Hunters, and they were in Alabama. And their 34-year-old daughter, his name was Mary Faye Hunter, had gone missing. Now, Jeane Dixon very clearly told them that Mary Faye was alive, that she was fine. It will surprise no one to find out that she was absolutely not fine. She was found dead several months after her disappearance. So, she got murdered. Later on, in 1969, she was also asked to find a boy named Dennis Martin, who was 6, and he had gone missing in the Great Smoky Mountains, like the national park in Tennessee. She did not do this, and to this day, that kid has not been found. So whatever happened there, I mean, obviously, but she did not find him. Now, she also said, one prediction that she made that some people think is accurate is that she predicted, I'm not sure what year she made this prediction, but she said before the 20th century was out that one pope would be like hurt and then another one would be assassinated. Now, none of the popes have been assassinated as far as I remember. There were a couple of attempted assassinations, like Pope John Paul II. Like, I think somebody attempted to assassinate him, but it was not successful. And Pope John Paul I, I think when he died, I think some people thought that he had been assassinated, but I don't really know about that. So she kind of counted that as a win, even though that's pretty big. Now, again, she predicted in 2020, and she was long dead by that time. Like I said, she died in 1997. But she wrote a book in 1971, and she predicted that there would be a war of Armageddon in 2020. And she also said, and this one might still come true. Maybe, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if you have to necessarily be a psychic to come up with this, but okay. She predicted that there would be a war between China and Russia that would happen between 2025, just next year, and 2037, and that China would win. So we'll see if that comes true or not. I'm not hopeful because most of her shit's been totally wrong, but she gave herself a wide range of years there, so that's something. What do you think about that, Tom?
I couldn't hear.
That she made a prediction. Well, she said that there would be a war of Armageddon in 2020, which obviously didn't happen as far as I know. But in 1971, she also predicted that there would be a war between China and Russia between 2025 and 2037, and that China would win.
What do I think of that?
Yeah.
She's pulled that totally out of her ass.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
And like I said, she probably put it way enough in the future because she knew she'd be dead by then. She was born in like the early 1900s.
Yeah. Well, she's saying that because back in the olden days, they noticed that there was a lot of... The United States was real afraid of communist countries, but they noticed there was a big difference between Russia and China. There was like a rivalry. They didn't trust each other. They had two different interpretations of communism even. So there's always kind of like I think in the Omega Man, the bioweapon got released because China and Russia went to war. Remember?
Yeah, so that was like
It's a kind of
definitely
common trope.
in the zeitgeist at the time. Because I remember other psychics making similar predictions around that time, like in the early 70s. Like I said, I kind of feel like what they do is they kind of read the room. They keep track of shit that's going on in politics, shit that's going on in pop culture, and they just play the odds. They just say, well, this is kind of likely to happen, so it's probably safe to make that prediction. You know what I mean? And if they couch it far enough in the future, like, they'll be dead and no one can check. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, so it's kind of safe. That's kind of seemed like what she was doing. Interestingly, so remember how I said that a lot of psychics have this thing where they just make a fuck ton of predictions and then hope that you just remember the one or two things they happen to get right and, like, forget the 200 things they got wrong? A mathematician at Temple University named John Allen Paulos actually studied this phenomenon and called it the Jeane Dixon effect.
Yeah.
That's basically what it's kind of like confirmation bias, like pretty much. Like you want to believe that she's a psychic and that she's correct, so you're going to latch on to the one or two times. Yeah, she kind of sort of predicted JFK getting assassinated, which wasn't that out there. She kind of got a couple things right, but most of the time she was way off. But people forget all the times she was wrong and only remember like the one or two times that she was right. And that's why psychics make a fuck ton of predictions, because they're hoping, just statistically, that they'll get one or two things right and everyone will remember that and forget all the shit they got wrong. But that's what they call that. They call that the Jeane Dixon effect. So that's how fucking famous she was. You know what I mean? So yeah. So Jeane Dixon, as I said, died in 1997 of a cardiac arrest. Whether or not she saw it coming, I don't really know. We're going to talk about...
Well, her health was probably failing.
That's what I mean. She was old by this time. Like I said, she was actually born in 1904, so she was in her 90s.
Yeah, lived a full life.
At this point. The funny thing about it, the story goes, that before she died, she said, "I knew this would happen."
Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah, you were like 93 years old. You knew you were going to die. Wow. What a great prediction that was.
Quite a prediction.
Quite a prediction. I'm going to die when I'm 93 years old.
Camp Guy mentions that, Jesus fed the multitudes with 2 fish. Pisces. That's what they're talking about, yeah. I think that was in John, Book of John. That gospel, I think, is the one that has the most detail in it, and that's got the most astrology references in it. I mean, Dr. Robert M. Price is the one. He's an expert on all that. I got to go back and see what he says about it, but I haven't been listening to Dr. Price recently. We had him on the show one time.
Yeah,
time ago.
maybe twice. Was he on twice or just once?
No, we had Angry Gay Pope twice, didn't we?
Actually, he was on like 3 times. I think.
Times, yeah.
I don't remember if we had Robert Price on once or twice. But
it
was like
once.
a long time ago.
Yeah, it's back when we had guests.
Yeah, he's fascinating.
Yeah. We should do guests every now and then.
Yeah, it's just kind of such a pain in the ass,
Yeah,
like technically but that's why we don't really do it. But you know, we can figure it out every now and then.
Yeah.
But you know, so for a while they actually had a Jeane Dixon museum and library in Virginia, but I think they closed it like in 2008 because the dude that owned it died. So let's talk about fucking Sylvia Browne. I'm gonna say out front, I am not a big fan of this woman. Like, I'm not a big fan of these kind of TV psychics in general, but this one to me seems particularly vile, just because she absolutely knew what she was doing was shitty, and she just like kept doing it anyway.
Sylvia Browne.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was just an opportunist.
Yeah, she just seemed like just a really shit
She
person.
wanted to pay those bills and be famous.
Which, like, everybody wants to pay their bills, okay? But
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just like, I'm not willing to, like, go tell fucking people whose children have been kidnapped.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, that they're
that
still alive or that
they're
they're dead.
still alive, or that, like, I know
Yeah.
where they are,
You're
or
right,
shit
yeah.
like that. Like, don't fucking do that. That's, you know, what? No amount of money is, like, fucking worth that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not cold like that. I just can't do that kind of shit. Now,
She probably didn't put herself up to that. How much you want to bet it was the television programs are going like, well, okay, if you're so good, what happened to these? Where are these kids? Can you help us with these? Yeah, I can help you with those. That's that's what she did, and then she fell into that shit. Because I remember that's what they would do when they'd have her on.
yeah.
They'd ask her about missing children and people that girls that had gone missing and were never seen from again. Their families were in the audience. It's kind of like they ambushed them or something. Who knows?
I don't think so, though, because they
think they set it up, prepped it up.
They prep the people before, like obviously because the parents have to be flown out there and like
Right.
all this other kind of
You
stuff.
think you think they told her?
Yeah, of
that they were
course.
coming? Yeah.
They don't surprise you on it.
Yeah.
Like I know they try to make it seem like that.
She's just hoping they don't find that body. I hope they don't find that body while I'm alive.
That's probably what's in the back of her mind.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's what makes her so shitty
Yeah.
because she knows absolutely she's just pulling shit out of her ass. And she's just saying stuff like, they always say like vague shit, like they're near water. Well, gee, that narrows it down, doesn't
Yeah.
it? You know what I mean?
I see trees near water. I see clouds. The air's there. Wind is blowing.
There's air.
Yeah, wind is blowing. Bugs.
Yeah. Maybe there's a road.
Yeah, there's a road.
Yeah.
There's a road right near there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, that could literally be fucking anywhere in
Yeah.
America or any other
Yeah.
country, really.
Just look at a fucking GPS shot of the United States.
I mean,
The whole thing. The roads are fucking everywhere.
That's
That's
what
why
I
there's
mean.
no Bigfoot.
yeah.
They'd have hit one in the middle of the
You
road
would
by
think.
now. Yeah.
Like I said, they don't know they're supposed to hide.
Yeah.
You think they'd just be wandering around? That's why I don't believe in the Loch Ness Monster either, because like the Loch Ness Monster doesn't know that it has to hide from people.
There's no Loch Ness monster.
Like you'd think that it would just, if it lived in the loch, it would just be like, woo, all right, like hanging out on the fucking
if there was
shore
a
and
Loch
stuff.
Ness
It
monster,
doesn't
there'd
care.
have to be a whole breeding.
It's an animal.
Have to be a whole breeding population.
Yeah,
of them.
I mean, there's a whole problem with that.
So there'd be 20 or 30 of them. And they'd all be up fucking basking in the sun, laying up on the beach.
Yeah, because why wouldn't they? Like I said,
They
don't
wouldn't hide.
They don't know they're supposed to hide from people.
Yeah.
That's us projecting onto them.
Yeah. You're
'Cause
a
they're supposed to be
you're a cryptozoological creature. You need to hide.
Right.
That
Yeah.
fucking thing is
So it's a mystery.
like, bitch, I'm fucking 30 feet long. I don't have to fucking, I don't
Why, I don't have to hide from you. I could
Hide
just
from
step
you.
on
Yeah.
you.
Right, yeah.
Or eat you. Or
Yeah.
whatever. That's kind of why I don't. Like I said, out of all the cryptozoological creatures, I think like Bigfoot Yeti toads is the most likely, but I still don't really.
It's unlikely
believe it.
today.
I think nowadays like with GPS and like just the way we've encroached on wilderness and stuff like that, I think we would have found it by now.
There's a couple places in Washington State where probably man has never set foot. But that's not a very big area when you compare it to Canada.
Yeah,
So it'd be more likely that if there was a Bigfoot, it would be in Canada.
probably.
Because that's a big place and it's very sparsely populated. But you'd still probably be able to see a Bigfoot. It would have an ecological
I mean, you'd think
impact.
that somebody would at least be able to see one and not get like some shitty fucking. Everyone has like super high tech cell phones now
And there's spy satellites. You'd think something
and
with
satellites. So you
satellite
think, like,
with
some shit would
thermal
come up
imaging
on
on satellites, you'd probably say because you could see all the fucking animal migrations. You're just gonna see reindeer and elk and shit like that. Nobody said, "Hey man, I saw some Sasquatch." Nah. It'd have been found by now.
Yeah,
It would have
I mean,
crossed a
you think-
road, and somebody would have hit it. You'd have
Can
a
you
body.
imagine like hitting a fucking Bigfoot with your
Yeah.
car. Imagine
'Cause
explaining that to your
people
insurance
get
company.
hit. People get hit by cars.
Deer get hit all the time too.
Which is ridiculous, but people get hit by cars. I've seen videos of it.
I almost hit a deer.
People
one
stepping out right in front of a car, not even looking.
morning. Well, drugs are a hell of a drug.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, Phantom says there are Bigfoot sightings all over the globe, though. Yeah, and I'm not saying they're all mistaken. I'm saying that I mean, I don't know. That it could be misidentification. Yeah, there could be something and I'm not saying that there's not shit that's like not identified yet.
The only thing that's plausible is orang pendek.
Yeah.
There's the things like orang pendek in that area, like a bipedal monkey, bipedal tailless monkey. They're not very big though.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, they're not like
maybe 4 or 5 feet tall.
How tall do they say the Bigfoot is? Like 10 feet tall, something like that.
Yeah, and orang pendek, that was reported. It's about 5 feet tall.
Okay, so shorter than me.
Yeah.
Not super impressive. You'd probably just think it was like a monkey or like a
yeah.
was walking around.
Well, they actually had a Western zoologist that lived there that saw it and said, "Oh, it's for real." He said it wasn't a hominid. It wasn't a hominid though. It was a monkey. It was a big monkey.
Right.
That's what he said.
Which isn't that. Well, like I said, I kind of feel like the whole cryptozoology thing is just people want, because everything's been like explained all the fuck, they kind of want some mystery still, like in the world. So it's like we want to think that there's like something out there that's like mysterious and we don't know about it. And I'm not saying that there's not that. I'm just saying that sometimes you might jump to conclusions like, oh my god, it's a chupacabra, or oh my god, it's a huge sea monster or something like that, when that's probably not what it is. It's probably just like a regular ass animal. It's just,
by the time the 1930s rolled around, you weren't really going to find it too much new. You know.
I mean, they find new shit nowadays, but it's usually like little shit.
Yeah, it's little stuff.
Like bugs and little birds and crap like that.
They were still, the King Kong was plausible in the 20s. That maybe there is an island we don't know about that has natives on it and a gigantic fucking gorilla. And dinosaurs maybe are still on it. In the 20s, you could be excused for believing.
Yeah, people were like, okay.
They didn't have satellite photography. They didn't know where all the islands were. Something like that might exist, but not today. We know every inch of the fucking surface of the planet.
Yeah, if crazy shit existed, I would imagine that it was probably like way down in the ocean, because we can't we can't really explore down there.
All right, I'm gonna fucking throw some heavy shit down.
Uh-oh.
All right, y'all ready for this? There's a shit ton of time in the past. The Earth has been here for a long, long time, and it's been habitable for a long, long time. And the surface of the Earth is old enough where the surface could have been reset many times, and there wouldn't be a trace of any kind of past civilization. So there is a possibility that some of these things that we're calling UFOs, some of them seem to come out of the water. There could be a possibility that there's an ancient civilization here on Earth that's subterranean, that are maybe even living machines, and that they live here on the planet with us, and we would never know. They might be cloaked, because the Earth is that old. They might have went through biological phase for a while and then became living machines, and they still might be here. And then they might be in deep space too. There's no sign of them in terms of in deep space. But people are seeing these UFOs. The military says, yeah, we've seen them. They have some videos, but they won't release the real good versions of it. And so jump into the whole extraterrestrial thing right away. You might want to consider maybe they're not extraterrestrial. Maybe that's terrestrial. It's just very, very old.
Yeah, maybe they've been here a long time.
Been here for millions and millions of years, hundreds of millions of years, before the dinosaur. That's what they're talking about.
They just watch the whole thing happen.
Yeah.
They're just underground. They'd come up every now and then with their little binoculars and be like, what's going on up here? All right, never mind.
Yeah, and they may not even be biological anymore. They might be technological.
There could be all kind of cool shit under there.
Yeah. But when you're technological and you're immortal, you don't need large numbers. You don't need a big population of workers. You don't need that. So there might only be a couple of them.
Getting into Star Trek territory.
Yeah, kind of like Star Trek type shit. Yeah.
Shows up on some planet and it's just like one dude.
Like one of them is left. Yeah.
With like all these fucking.
And he's the supreme being.
Right.
Yeah. Well, if you look at mankind, that's what it does. It wipes out its own kind. Breakaway civilizations.
Yeah, we're kind of dicks like that.
Yeah, you guys are not primitive, so we're going to kill all you all. All right, now we're the more sophisticated ones, and we'll take over. Well, the numbers get smaller and smaller. Once that happens, the industrial phase is over. Now they're going into post-industrial. which there's too many useless eaters now.
Quit eating so much, you guys. All right, so let's get back to talking about the bitch. So, because there's a lot of wrong predictions that she made that I'm mad about that I don't talk about. So, this bitch, like I said, she's been around for a while. Because I remember, like, I saw the clip where she was on In Search Of when she was still young and normal looking. But, she mostly kind of got real big in the 90s and 2000s because she was on, like, Larry King all the time. And she was on Montel Williams. Honestly, I think she was... I could be wrong about this, but I think she was the guest that was on Montel Williams the most. Like, she was always on that shit. Like, and like I said, they asked him about it. It's like, why is this bitch always on your show? Like, fucking, and he's just like, oh, I think she's funny or whatever. She also wrote 46 fucking books over her lifetime, 22 of which were on the New York Times bestseller list. So it just goes to show. Now, so she always said, now you have to think, like Sylvia Browne, she wrote a lot of books, and she talked a lot about her life in the books. And I will note that a lot of the stuff that she said about her life is not really verifiable. So I kind of imagine that she probably just pulled most of it out of her butt. So she said that she knew that she was psychic from when she was 3. And that she later told her parents that she'd had a prediction that they would have another daughter. They had another daughter, like, after her or whatever. And she also said that when she was young that she could just look at people and tell when they were going to die. Apparently, like I said, that didn't work on herself because she was way off, like, when she thought she was going to die. But see, she later on, she said, oh, well, I'm not really psychic about myself. She was like, had a little out about that. Because people would ask, was like, well, why didn't you see that coming? Yeah. Oh, well, I'm not psychic about myself. Well, that's convenient. Okay. She also said that she came from a long line of psychics, but going back 300 years, all of them were psychics.
I can barely go back 3 generations of my family. What are you talking about?
Yeah, like, I knew my great-grandparents, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Like, they were still, most of them were still alive.
I can vaguely remember a great-great-grandmother that I met once when I was a little kid, when I was little.
I think most of my great-great, but I knew my great-grandparents, but I don't think I ever met my great-great-grandparents. So, she was actually born Sylvia Shoemaker in 1936. And as I said, over her lifetime, she either married like 4 or 5 times, and like one of their last names was Brown without an E, but she added the E, I guess, to be more fancy. I'm not really sure like what the E was all about, because his last name was just Brown, like regular Brown. So she actually, as if this wasn't arrogant enough, she went the L. Ron Hubbard route and founded her own religion, because why not? In the 80s, she actually founded a religion called the Society of Novus Spiritus. And she says, I'm starting a new world religion, love, peace, staying on track, and the answers to what we thought were mysteries. So a pretty tall order there.
They all kind of promise that.
They do, yeah. I mean,
some
that's
generic
kind of
shit.
I mean, it still works. I guess that's why they still do
right.
it. So, which, like I said, it's kind of sad. So, started her own religion, which, like I said, kind of takes some chutzpah to do that, I guess. Now,
probably just a way of getting around taxes.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why L. Ron Hubbard did it.
Yeah.
He wasn't really going too far with his, like, tech or whatever. She was like, well, I'm just going to make it a religion, and then I don't have to pay taxes on it. Right. And that worked, too. So, you know. So, like I said, a lot of the shit about her background, even though she talked a lot about her background in her numerous books, a lot of it was kind of bullshit. Like, one thing, like, one of her ex-husbands, I guess, who got pretty pissed off at her, like, went public and said about her, even though she said she got a college degree, he said no, she never got a college degree. She didn't even go to college. And this was kind of a funny own goal because she got mad about it. This was in 2007, I think. She got mad about it, and so she sent this journalist her, like, there's this guy that ran a website called StopSylvia.com. And so she sent him her transcripts. And the funny thing about it was it showed that she had gone to this college, but she never graduated. So it's like she was just actually proving, like, her ex-husband said, yeah, she doesn't have a college degree. It's like, indeed, she does not. And I don't know if she thought that would prove otherwise, but the transcript showed that she didn't finish. So there's that. And so here's the thing. Sylvia, among many other things, one of the main things, and this was usually what was asked of her, like when she was on TV programs, which is, like I said, one of the things that kind of pisses me off about it, is that she was always going on and on about how she was working with the FBI on missing persons cases, and she always like inserted herself into like really high profile cases. Oh, I worked on the Ted Bundy case. I worked on the 1993 like attack on the World Trade Center. Like they asked me for my input on that and shit like that. And she used to say that like all the time, like in her books, like on TV and shit like that. But the thing about it, was that after she died, Skeptical Inquirer, which is a really good magazine, if you don't, I'm sure it's still around, but I used to have a subscription for it for a long time. I used to buy it on the newsstand all the time. They kind of did an expose, and they got a Freedom of Information request about her, and like through the FBI, and they said, yeah, we didn't work with her on any of that. Like, she didn't consult on the Ted Bundy case. She didn't consult on the World Trade Center 1993 case. Nothing like that. And matter of fact, they said, well, we don't really have any records of her consulting with us on anything. So, but that was something that she lied about, like, all the time. Oh, she worked on the Ted Bundy case. She worked on this and that. No, she didn't. She was just making that up. Now, one police department that she did work with, I guess she charged them like $400. Thibodeau Police Department? Thibodeau? That sounds like Louisiana.
Yeah, Thibodeau.
And she charged them $400. They did find records of that, but she absolutely did not help. They actually solved the murder 10 years later, and nothing that she gave them had been any help at all. There was also this whole thing where she said that she was working with this FBI agent named Ted Gunderson.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you know who that is.
Yeah, it's fucking people think that Alex Jones is Ted Gunderson. Yeah.
He's kind of like this big conspiracy theorist guy.
Yeah.
And he had retired from the FBI, so people are like, well, it's possible that they worked together like after his retirement, but like while he was working for the FBI, no, there are no records of them working together. But yeah, like later on, like after he retired, he kind of got real famous in like conspiracy theory circles, so it's very possible that they could have been working together.
He was into dirty government stuff.
Yeah. Well, and he kind of was involved with that McMartin preschool shit too, like where he thought it was like they were doing satanic shit like down in the tunnels, like underneath, which was all bullshit.
That's all bullshit though.
Well, like we should probably do a whole show about that. We talked about it a lot, like on our Satanic Panic shows. That we did a couple of those, but I don't know if we went really in depth on that case. But they were saying like, you know, Chuck Norris like flushed people down the toilet or something like that.
The kids said that.
The kids said that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, they were accusing like everybody
Chuck
that
Norris
worked there
of
being like satanic,
they all
like
left
child molesters.
They all left in a fucking hot air balloon.
Yeah, it was ridiculous shit that they were coming up with, and everybody's like, oh my god, they're all child molesters.
Well, they're pressing these little kids to come up with these wild stories, and they came up with wild stories. I remember that, man.
I kind of remember
that shit was
too.
So fucking wild. I think that shit was so fucking wild that people thought that maybe it was real. Like, you know what I mean? Nietzsche once said that fucking the more wild a fucking story is, and the more wild a lie is, the more likely it is to be believed.
I think to an extent that's true, but you can take that too far.
You can, but people are people.
That's true.
All right? And when you're dealing with the average IQ of 100, that's not that smart.
I think
of them dumber than
here's
that.
the thing, though. I think it helps if you come out first and you say something that's kind of wild but not super wild. It's still kind of sort of believable. And then like if people buy that, then you can say all kind of crazy shit and people like believe it after that. You can't just come right out the gate and say just like fucking crazy ass shit. You know what I mean?
We ought to do a show on Ted Gunderson though. I've heard of his name's popped up several times.
Yeah.
And some people have thought you look and from what at least the photos I was shown online, you know, some of the videos that had mentioned him, said he looked like a young Alex Jones. Some people were saying that Alex Jones is actually Ted Gunderson, but it can't. The dates don't match up. You know what I mean? He'd have been too old.
Well, there was also
they are kind of similar.
There was also an urban legend going around that Alex Jones was actually Who was the dude, like the weird performance artist that did the Mighty Mouse song that was on Taxi?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
What was his name?
Fuck. Michael, no. David,
No. You guys know. You guys know who I'm talking about.
Here I come to save the day.
Oh, and they said he was Bill Hicks too.
Yeah, Bill Hicks.
I've heard that.
Bill Hicks.
But that's not who I'm thinking of.
Yeah,
but
Bill
I've
Hicks.
heard that. I've heard that.
Yeah,
story.
Bill Hicks, Ted Gunderson. It might have been Bill. I might be getting them confused. Does he look more like Bill Hicks? Because
I never thought he.
Like Bill Hicks.
I never thought he looked that much like Bill Hicks, but I haven't seen Bill Hicks in a while. I mean, Bill Hicks is dead now, but yeah.
The conspiracy scene, okay, has conspiracies about the scene.
I know,
and it's you piling on, but
it's like conspiracyception.
Yeah, it's like it's like
because conspiracy dudes that love conspiracies, they just want more and more.
Yeah, they have
everything like
they have a
to
certain.
Be. Nothing can just be regular.
No.
Everything has to have like all these nefarious tentacles and shit.
And it eventually
that sounds exhausting.
And eventually it gets into the
Andy Kaufman. Thank you.
Andy Kaufman.
That's who I was thinking of. I could not remember his fucking.
If you go too far down the conspiracy rabbit hole, you'll eventually arrive at flat Earth reality.
Yeah.
Where you'll have people that are saying that the Earth is actually flat. The satellites
we did a whole
are actually
show
being held up by balloons.
Man,
and
all of the bullshit that you have to believe that that's true is how can you keep all that shit? Like I said, it sounds exhausting.
There's a huge government worldwide government fucking conspiracy to keep satellites in place using hot air balloons.
Sure.
Yeah. And that
not really.
And that the Earth doesn't fucking rotate around a sphere, or the Earth is not rotating. Therefore, the fucking sun is making a day and night side. It's actually a flat square,
like a disc,
and it's like a disc, and the sun and the moon are moving around it in like a figure eight pattern,
which
some
absolutely
shit like that.
does not.
It doesn't make any fucking sense.
If you watch, because a couple of scientists have made computer models of how the sun and the moon would have to move for that to be true, and it's crazy,
fucking crazy. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, and then they say, well, that's how it is. That's how it is. Then
no.
The thing is though is that I always, because I know some flat Earth realists, and I swear to God they're bullshitting you. It's
yeah. Well, the weird thing about flat Earth is just that
it's like they don't actually believe it.
We did a show about it a while back, and I was just kind of like,
contrary.
are there people? Yeah, I kind of feel like probably 95% of it is just people being contrarian.
Yeah, they're just. Yeah.
Now, I do believe that there are 5% of people that are actually stupid enough to believe that.
Yeah.
But
I think it's more.
Maybe it's more than that.
I think it's more of a battle of will.
Maybe I'm being generous.
I think it's more of a battle of will. They want it to be flat. They're trying to convince you that it's flat. They know it's not flat. They just want it to be flat.
Maybe. Well, like I said, no one gives a fuck what you want. The universe doesn't bend to your will.
Well, the weirdest thing is that a lot of the flat Earth people are not Christians.
No.
Or Jews.
Well, but that's where the flat Earth thing started, though.
Yeah.
It's just like creationism. Yeah. It came from the
It's got four corners. It has pillars.
Yeah, that came
Earth
from the
is
Bible.
sitting on pillars. There's a fucking fundament or a dome that goes over it. The stars are set in it.
That came from the Bible.
And it actually predates the Bible. It's Egyptian.
Yeah, it's before
ancient Egyptian. All right. Well, yeah, the Earth is standing on pillars. It's got four corners. But what are the pillars standing on?
A turtle.
And they just say they're standing on space.
Turtles all the way down.
Yeah, I guess so.
Some of you guys know what I'm talking about. But yeah, I don't. Like I said, I don't. I have like actual shit to do, so I don't really have time to be like entertaining all of these.
I just want to know what those pillars are resting on.
What stupid bullshit. Formica. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just pulling stuff out of my ass.
Linoleum.
Yeah, like they are.
Yeah. 1970s linoleum. Your grandma's couch is up in the corner.
Yeah.
All right, let's get back.
It's sitting on the roof of God's house.
Yeah.
That's what it's sitting on.
Yeah.
It's just like coming right out of there. And you can, if you go downstairs, like into the basement, that's where God's house is.
But getting rid of that concept, the only reason why you would ever want to believe that Earth is flat is so you could continue believing verbatim, or the Bible.
Yeah,
and the Old Testament too.
Until recently,
but they don't seem to care about that. They just want it to be flat.
Yeah, until recently, because like I said, I used to probably going back 10 years ago, I was real into like debunking creationists and stuff.
Yeah.
And it seemed to me like back then, like 10, 15 years ago, all your flat earthers were also young earth creationists. Like it usually like went together because they were taking the Bible literally.
Yeah.
So they were trying to argue scientifically that all of this stuff was true. Because the thing about it is that even though they're fundamentalists and supposedly you're just supposed to have faith and not worry about it, they were feeling threatened, evidently, that science was encroaching on their beloved mythologies. So they decided to couch their bullshit in scientific language. Which is what the creationists did. That's why they came up with intelligent design. It was a whole thing. And like I said, I want to do a show about that too because I find that really interesting.
Yeah, there's no intelligent design other than human genetic engineering.
Yeah.
Humans made bananas shaped that way.
Which is so funny because look at like it's fucking Ken Ham, right? And the fucking what's his face that was on the 80s show like Kirk Cameron.
Yeah.
Cuz he's like a fundy too. And they hung out together, him and Ken Ham. I think Ken Ham's Australian now that I'm thinking about it. Like, it's hilarious to me that they used a banana as an example of intelligent design
that God
when
made it.
Bananas were specifically
Designed by
genetically engineered by humans.
Yeah, the original banana, you can get them in Brazil. They're only about 2 inches long.
They didn't look like that in the wild.
Yeah,
corn doesn't look like that in the wild. Yeah. Like a lot of the stuff that we eat nowadays didn't look like that in the wild. We genetically engineered it.
Yeah, they're all genetically engineered foods. Yeah.
And a banana specifically, they did not look like that in the wild.
Even our cattle are bigger. They weren't that big back in the day. But you know, not busting on religions, but I would consider myself a cultural Christian. I like Christian imagery. I like Christian stuff, but I don't take it seriously.
I don't think anyone should.
It's not history. It's mythology.
No. Yeah, which is fine.
Yeah.
Like I said, fucking chill.
I like fucking Greco-Roman mythology too.
Yeah, they're cool stories.
Yeah, right.
Why you got to ruin it by like saying it's
they're
real?
Just cool stories, and they're just trying to explain to you something, and to teach you. They're parables, a lot of them.
Yeah.
Or there's you start in the New Testament, like we were talking about earlier. There's even astrology in them.
Yeah.
Which that just tells you the way people were back then. So it's all interesting.
Because astrology was really astrology and astronomy were kind of seen as sort of the same thing.
Yeah, it was science
for a long time.
Yeah, they were trying to be high tech.
Now, but yeah,
the ancient Christians tried to be high tech. They included science in the stories.
Oh, so this Gunderson person, who I'd heard his name before. I don't know a huge amount about him, but I had heard he's Alex Jones theory. I had heard that. But he also had this theory that Sonny Bono didn't die in an accident. Because remember, Sonny Bono died. He died
skiing.
Yeah, but he says that it wasn't an accident. That he was murdered.
No.
Yeah, he was just like skiing and he hit a tree or something.
Yeah,
it happens.
No, Sonny Bono was just skiing fucking.
Yeah, like I said,
with his girlfriend, and then
it happens.
Plowed into a tree about 50.
Like I said, just because a person is famous, that doesn't mean when they die that somebody engineered that. I mean, stupid accidents happen to famous people too because they are just humans like the rest of us peons. Yeah. So you don't have to attribute some nefarious like fucking shit to like every single thing that happens. Like I said, that sounds exhausting, and I know that people are like that. That's a particular personality type. That's a particular mindset. They're just looking for meaning in everything, but a lot of things don't have meaning. A lot of shit is just random. Don't worry about it. So yeah. Now, okay, so Sylvia Browne, like I said, she did a lot of kind of private readings and stuff like that. So you can't really fact check those because you don't really know like what happened during that. But she did make a lot of public predictions, which absolutely can be fact checked. Now, so as I mentioned earlier, I think I brought this up earlier, that a bunch of researchers in 2010, they put together all of the 115 missing persons and murder cases that she had made public predictions about. Because they wanted to see what her percentage rate was, like for being correct. And she was correct in precisely 0 of those cases. She was not right about anything, not even partially. Whatever it was, like where the missing person was, whether they were alive or dead, where the body was, blah, blah, blah. And whenever somebody called her on this, Her stock answer was, only God is right all the time. So, okay. But like I said, she predicted a lot of wrong shit. What for one thing, she predicted that Barack Obama would not win re-election, which obviously wrong on that. I don't know if I mentioned it, but she gets all her information from her spirit guide, whose name is Francine. So there you go. And she says that also she predicted that there would be a cure for multiple sclerosis, and that didn't happen. But she also said that there was a team of scientist angel things, people like working on it up in heaven, working on a multiple sclerosis cure up in heaven. You'd think they could just, if there was a heaven, they could just go choop and fix it. But no, they're working on it though. They'll get around to it eventually, probably. But yeah, so she said that. Like I said, why anybody believes this, I don't know. Now probably, and we did a whole show about this, probably one of the most famous wrong predictions that she made was about Amanda Berry. Now, we talked about this on our show about sex slave kidnappings, on which we talked about Ariel Castro, among other people. Now, Amanda Berry, as you will probably remember, disappeared in April of 2003. And the year after that, when nobody knew where she was, her mom went on the Montel Williams show, and Sylvia Browne was on there too. And Sylvia Browne told this poor woman to her face, and this was a quote, and I've seen the clip like many times. "She's not alive, honey," she says to the woman's mom, to the girl's mom. And the mom starts crying, obviously, and she says, "Will I see her again?" And she says, "Yeah, in heaven on the other side." That's what Sylvia said to her. Now, as we all know, like, and her mom totally believed that too. She thought that her daughter was dead, that Amanda Berry was dead. Which, like I said, this is another thing, like, they play the odds. Normally, when somebody disappears, and you don't, like, especially like a young girl or a kid or something like that, a lot of times when they disappear and you don't find them right away, yeah, like, odds are they're probably dead. Like, they either got murdered or they, wandered out in the woods or they died in the woods or whatever. So she was just playing the odds here. And odds are, yeah, she probably was dead. However, in this case, as we all know, Amanda Berry was absolutely not dead. Sadly, her mom died a year later, still thinking that her daughter was dead because Sylvia had told her that. So, like, all her hope had evaporated, which, like I said, that is, like, super, super shady.
Which girl was still alive?
Amanda Berry.
Oh, yeah, they found her.
That was, yeah.
Her mom had died while she was...
her mom died. Well, like I said, a year after she disappeared, the mom went on the Montel Williams show, and Sylvia Browne told her that she was dead.
Yeah. How'd she die?
Who?
The mom.
I think she, heart failure.
Okay. So it was natural causes.
Yeah, just natural causes.
Yeah.
But, yeah, she died, like, a year later.
Wasn't just Amanda Berry. There was three or four other. There were three.
Yeah,
other
there was a
girls
bunch of them in there.
Yeah,
but I mean, Amanda Berry was the one. Ariel Castro.
Castro.
Ariel Castro. Like I said, we did a show about
Where was that? Florida?
Sex slave kidnapping.
That wasn't Florida, was it?
No.
It was New York.
I don't remember what state it was at.
Where that was, yeah.
But yeah, Amanda Berry.
Yeah, I'm chained up in the house.
Escaped.
Yeah.
In 2013, she'd been in captivity for 10 fucking years, and like I said, this is another thing where. Well, like I was saying when you were in the bathroom, like, psychics play the odds. Like I said, yeah, most of the time, if somebody gets kidnapped like that or something like that, yeah, chances are they probably are dead. But, so she was just going with statistics, right?
Yeah.
Hoping she'd be right. But in this case, she was very, very wrong. Because Amanda Berry was very much alive and escaped in 2013 and, along with the other girls. She'd been in captivity for 10 years. And the shitty thing is that Amanda Berry saw that show with her mom on it because she was in captivity, but she still had TV and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And she was just, like, horrified. She's like, she could not believe that Sylvia told her that, and that, like, upset her so much, and she was so mad that she couldn't get out and, like, tell her mother that she was still alive.
All right.
And her mother died thinking that her daughter was dead, which that fucking that pissed me off like a lot. And then in 2002, Sylvia did pretty much the same thing. There was some parents who asked what happened to their missing kid. So in 2002, there was an 11-year-old boy named Sean Hornbeck, and he disappeared while he was out riding his bike. And again, on the Montel Williams show, like the parents were on the show, and Sylvia said he's dead, and you'll find him buried beneath two boulders. It's like she's like, it's in this field, but there's like these two inexplicable boulders there, and that's where he's buried at. Guess what? That kid was not dead either. What happened with that was that, so he disappeared in 2002. And there was a journalist, Michelle McNamara, who actually is credited with helping to find the Golden State Killer, the identity of the Golden State Killer, Joseph D'Angelo. And she got suspicious in 2007, 5 years later, when another kid named Ben Ownby disappeared. And he kind of looked the same as the other kid. She's like, I think this is the same dude. She was like a journalist, so she kind of like looked into it.
Dude abducting boys, huh?
And so like she connected the two crimes. And so when the police researched it and like investigated it, they found Ben Ownby still alive, and they found Sean Hornbeck still alive too, like in captivity. And they had both been kidnapped by this like guy that owned a pizza shop. His name is Michael Devlin.
I never heard of this one.
Yeah, and and they were both still alive. So again,
how old were they?
They were I think they were like 11ish
when they found him.
No. Well, yeah. Well, they were 11 when they were kidnapped.
How long did he have them?
Well, he had the first one for 5 years at least.
Okay.
And then they found the second kid who got kidnapped in 2007, but they found him like shortly after. But he still had the first kid that he'd kidnapped in 2002.
What was he doing with him?
What do you think?
No, I mean, like, did he have them chained up, or were they just free in his house?
I don't know.
Might be using mind control on them.
I don't know. I mean, they were just little kids.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, the parents were not pleased.
Did that dude... That's an interesting case.
Yeah.
Did people know? Did people that knew that dude, did they know he had those boys?
I don't know. Maybe
was he like trying to pass? Yeah, was he trying to pass them off as relatives or something?
I'm gonna write that down.
How do you have two boys and people not say, hey, who are those kids?
Yeah.
You know.
High Desert said Brown is a total cunt. Yeah, or was. Yeah, she's dead now. Thankfully. Yeah, I mean, this kind of shit. Like I said, I don't mind when they're just making stupid ass predictions about, yeah, the world's gonna end and blah blah blah. It's like, because nobody believes that crap anyway. But when they're doing shit like that, like this, that like impacts actual people's lives and like people who have missing children and shit like that, that is like unfathomable to me. It's like, why? I don't know. Like morally, you can't fucking justify it. You're a monster if you're doing this kind of shit. Like, especially like for money. You're telling these people shit, and like I said, the parents, like Sean Hornbeck's parents, obviously they were very happy to have their kid back alive and everything like that, but they were just livid that she had told them that he was dead. You know what I mean? Holy crap. And so they asked her later, at least somebody did, like, what the fuck was the deal with that? Like, how'd you get that so wrong? Her excuse was, oh, well, I had a vision of 3 missing children, and 2 of them were dead, and I think that I got my wires crossed, she said.
Got her wires crossed.
Like, I just picked the wrong kid because I was having a vision of, like, a bunch of kids, and a couple of them were dead. You know what I mean? And at this point, like, when this whole situation happened, like, one of her ex-husbands came out and basically called her, quote-unquote, atrocious, which, you know, can't disagree with that. Also, when Skeptical Inquirer did like a look back into her little history or whatever, they actually found a court case going back to the 80s. This didn't necessarily have anything to do with psychic shit, but it just kind of goes to show you how, like, what grifters these people were. So Sylvia Browne, back in the 80s, had gotten involved in this gold mining venture and had sold securities. And so her and her husband at the time, like one of her many husbands, they got like $20,000 out of this. And they were supposed to put it back into the business that they had, but they just like put it in their own accounts. And the thing about it was that Sylvia had said that, oh, well, my psychic visions told me that this gold mine was going to be a good investment or whatever. And it was just like a whole fraud thing. So she actually got in trouble for that. Although she only ended up getting like 200 hours of community service. She didn't get any jail time or anything like that. And when they caught her for it, she just blamed her ex-husband. Like she said it was all his fault. Also, she had been investigated in 1986 for falsifying financial documents on loan applications. So that's, like I said, she was just like a grifter, like all around. And so here was another thing. So, another thing that she did, and this is kind of like the opposite of what she did before, where in this case, she said that like somebody that was missing, she told them that she was still alive, but that was not the case, was the case of Linda McClelland. Now, her daughters had like come on there like asking what had happened to their mom. And Sylvia told them, oh, she's fine. She's alive and well. She's working in Florida. I think she told them that she was working as a stripper. I think is what she said.
Wow.
But actually, her dead body was found in Pennsylvania.
Huh.
So,
totally wrong.
And she'd actually been strangled by her son-in-law. And a bunch of his friends had helped to bury her.
I wonder why.
So, way wrong on that, too. Way wrong.
What'd they strangle her for?
I have no idea. I have no idea. So, yeah, it's just
you be hungry after the show?
Yeah.
I'm going to go heat up the food and it'll be ready by the
time.
Oh,
okay.
Put it on the pot.
Okay. Now, as I mentioned earlier, like I mentioned James Randi earlier, who, like I said, I know a lot of people didn't like him because he was kind of like cranky and everything like that, but I was always like a big fan of his, because he's a very no bullshit person, and so am I, and he kind of went after these fucking charlatans and kind of tried to make them put their money where their mouth is. So for a long time, and as far as I know, it's still out there because, I mean, he's died now, but he still has a foundation that he started. So they will they will pay you $1 million if you can prove that you have some kind of paranormal psychic abilities or something like that under scientific conditions. And the thing about it is that he's very generous about, here's, the conditions that you have to, and you have to agree to it. You know what I mean? Like, is this amenable to your thing? Like, will you come in and do this? And if you can do it, then we'll give you $1 million. He has had this challenge for, I don't even know how long, decades. Many people have taken the challenge. None have gotten it. Now, Sylvia Browne said, I believe it was on Larry King Live, that she would absolutely, no doubt about it, that she would actually, and this happens a lot, that she would absolutely do the challenge. This was back in 2001. And so they went back and forth like for a long time about how the whole thing was going to be set up, like what the parameters were and stuff like that. And finally they came to an agreement. She agreed, he agreed, this is how we're going to test your abilities and all this other kind of stuff. And it will surprise absolutely no one to know that even though Sylvia was happy with everything they'd sorted out and said she absolutely was very happy to come and test her abilities, she never showed up. She never showed up. And then later on, when somebody asked her about it, she said the same thing that all of the psychics say when confronted with this information. I have nothing to prove to anybody, and I don't really need the money, or I don't want his money, or the money isn't there. That's usually the arguments that they make. They all say the same thing. And that's the same thing that she said. She has nothing to prove to anybody. So I was just kind of like, okay, so you can't do it, is what you're saying. If you could do it, you could get $1 million, but no, they never do it. They never do it. And like I said, when they actually do it, they always fail, even though they've agreed to the parameters. Now, here's something kind of interesting that I kind of feel like Sylvia Browne kind of came back into the spotlight in 2020 because it seemed as though she had predicted COVID-19. And this kind of came back into the spotlight mostly because of the Kardashians for some fucking reason. Because I guess they were kind of like, oh my God, she said in like this old book that she wrote, that what was going to happen. You know what I mean? So like a book that she wrote in 2007. And so everybody got all excited that she had predicted COVID-19 or some shit like that. So what it was, she wrote a book called End of Days, like I said, in 2007, which people love that shit. I don't really know why, but yeah. We're going to talk about the end of the world. Okay, cool. So she said in her book, and this is from the book, in around 2020, a severe pneumonia-like illness will spread throughout the globe, attacking the lungs and the bronchial tubes and resisting all known treatments. Almost more baffling than the illness itself will be the fact that it will suddenly vanish as quickly as it arrived, attack 10 years later, and then disappear completely. Now, because that was in there, and because the Kardashians had yapped their jaws about it, I guess like the book sales like went way up again, like even though the book came out in 2007. But you know, a lot of people were quick to come out and be like, well, COVID-19 is not a pneumonia-like illness, really. And we don't know if the predictions that she made about, it disappearing quickly and then coming back in 10 years, like, obviously we don't know that. They also said that a couple of other things had predicted it, like The Simpsons. And also Dean Koontz, weirdly, had predicted it, like in a book of his. Also, I will note that around the time that she made that prediction in around 2007, SARS had just been a thing. So it wasn't really a stretch to think that something like that, some kind of pandemic like that, might come back in another form, or something similar might happen, because pandemics tend to be cyclical. And like I said, they know that kind of stuff. They keep up with that kind of stuff. So I don't think it's really
we need to do a show.
Much of a prediction.
I think we might need to do a show on shit that the Simpsons fucking.
That might be interesting, because it's kind of like a meme,
and to see if it actually is true. Because I saw a picture of what looked like it came off The Simpsons, of the QAnon shaman. Remember that motherfucker who was in the Capitol with the damn horns on his head?
Yeah.
And they were saying, like, look, he was in the... But I don't know if they fucking retroactively made that picture.
Yeah, it's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell. So I don't know.
Because there's so many Simpsons episodes.
There's so many Simpson episodes, and fucking you can fake anything.
Yeah.
So you can make a Simpson-looking drawing and say, yeah, that was in episode something or other. And I don't know if that guy was actually in an episode. Or maybe he saw that episode and he made a suit like that. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be.
That could happen too. But I don't know if it... You guys know what I'm talking about. QAnon Shaman. That fucking dude with the fucking...
He was all over the fucking...
Crazy. Beating drums and casting out fucking demons. Casting the demons out of the fucking Senate.
Whatever the fuck it is. All right. But yeah, so as I mentioned, this woman here, she said on multiple occasions, when people had been cheeky like me and like asked her, well, why didn't you see this coming, or why didn't you see that coming, or something like that, and she always said, I'm not psychic about myself, which obviously proved to be true, because on 2003 she went on Larry King, and they asked her if she knew what age she was going to die, and she said absolutely she did, that she was going to die at the age of 88. Very wrong. She actually died at 77. She died in 2013. So when she was 77 years old. So she was wrong about that too. One of the things that she said from one of her books about when you died, she said, you don't just float around. You can go to the Hall of Messengers, okay, where you can talk to Jesus. That sounds nice. You can go to the Hall of Reconnection, where you can connect with someone you love. She had a whole afterlife thing going on, like a whole company where you could go to like different departments depending on what you wanted. And I was just kind of like, okay. She couldn't even get the date of her own death right. I mean, but it's kind of fitting that she got that wrong too, because she got pretty much everything else wrong. I know everybody got like super excited and like, you know, got boners about how she predicted COVID-19, but
Doing this show has inspired me to get a fucking Blu-ray or DVD of The Man Who Saw Tomorrow.
It used to scare the crap out of me when I was little.
We gotta watch that shit just for shits and giggles.
We should
watch
review
that
it.
shit in fucking HD.
We could probably. It's probably on YouTube.
You could probably rent it. Yeah.
I mean, I imagine.
Well, you could probably rent it on Amazon.
Yeah. Or there might be a good one on YouTube, like I said.
Yeah, a good copy.
Because I'm sure a lot of people of our age
Yeah,
remember that
one,
pretty
yeah.
fondly. Because it was like pretty scary.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid, I don't think I actually believed a lot of the stuff in it, but
I kind of wanted to believe it.
But I was just kind of like, well, it's kind of scary anyway.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to believe it. I'm like, yeah.
I mean, I was pretty little when I first.
Wow, you know, what I mean, he predicted all that. Then these future predictions must be true.
Yeah.
Wow, just like out of the Bible. Yeah, that was what they were doing.
Phantom said Escape from New York predicted 9/11 when Snake was flying the plane. Said, to be honest, though, a lot of shows and movies predicted 9/11. Yeah, they kind of did. I think The Simpsons predicted that too, kind of. Which clearly someone knew that was going to happen since the 80s. Well, like I said, if you keep up with... And I think that's kind of why The Simpsons has such a good track record. I don't know what the statistics are on it. But a lot of people point out every time something big happens, oh my God, The Simpsons predicted that. You know what I mean? On this episode or whatever. But I think it's just because they know so much about politics and pop culture and everything like that. And if you know a lot of that information, like, you can make lucky guesses about shit.
The best prediction was done by Alex Jones. He was warning. He goes, we need to tell the president. I don't remember which president was in charge. It might have been Bush. Yeah, it was Bush. He says that they're going to fly a plane into the World Trade Center or something crazy like that. And they asked AJ later, how did you know about that? He says, well, that was out there in the zeitgeist. He said he said he saw an episode of some kind of anti-terrorist program, one 24, one of the other ones, where that was mentioned.
Yeah, I think that was something that was a possibility that...
And they had already attacked the World Trade Center with a truck bomb underneath the bottom.
Yeah, in 1993.
They were trying to knock that down a couple times. So it made sense that somebody could hijack a plane and fly.
So, like I said, you don't have to be psychic to, like, come up with that.
Yeah, AJ said he wasn't psychic. He said he had already heard about that would be a good attack. So, and they did it. Yeah, it worked.
Kason Lee said the lone gunman predicted 9/11 too. Yeah, I kind of feel like a lot of stuff did. But like I said, there was a lot of that kind of shit going around.
Yeah.
Like, if you were kind of keyed into what was going on.
Right. He said it was...
Then
AJ said it was in the zeitgeist.
Yeah, you don't really have to be psychic.
No.
As long as you got your ear to the ground and you know what's going on, like, you can pretty reliably make predictions.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think that's kind of what a lot of these big famous psychics that make all these big predictions every year or whatever, I don't know if they do that anymore, but when they used to, they just kept their ear to the ground. And like somebody like Jeane Dixon was actually pretty connected. Like, she knew a lot of people high up in the government, so she kind of knew more shit than the regular motherfucker would know. So she could probably make all kind of like, and despite that, she still made some kind of shitty predictions, even though she was kind of in the know. So that just goes to show, like, how bullshit that those powers are. You know what I'm saying? Because she had access to, like, the best information, and she was still fucking it up.
Yeah, AJ knew that Osama bin Laden had blown up blown a big hole in the side of that ship. They knew more attacks were coming. He saw some program where somebody mentioned flying something into the World Trade Center. And AJ said, boy, that'd be an effective attack. And they've tried it before, basically. So it wasn't psychic abilities. He was just saying, like, that would be a good attack to do against the United States if you were an enemy.
Like I said, you don't gotta be psychic.
He said somebody needs to fucking tell the president that an attack like that's coming. You know, something's coming.
Well, they did.
And he did that. I think he predicted it by a couple months, and it happened. And then he goes, I told you they were going to do something like that. So he was right. He's right about a lot of stuff. It's just that what he's getting from is from the zeitgeist. It's not psychic or anything.
Well, and that's the same place that psychics are getting from, and where the Simpsons readers are getting the shit from.
Right.
Like I said, they're not just making it up. They're just playing.
Well, you can get a feeling of...
They're playing the odds.
You can get a feeling of what's going to happen depending on the forces that are fighting each other, you know, in the world. You know? Like, you know, the forces between the United States and fascism, or the you know, fucking the United States versus Germany. You could probably predict a lot of the shit that was going to happen between those if you were there during that time, because you knew how both sides thought, and you knew what the capabilities kind of were. So, you know.
And if you've seen similar situations in history before, like, you can predict. And like I said, they're not always right. Actually, a lot of times they're not right because you can't. It's really hard to predict stuff in the future because there's so many contingencies.
Yeah, history doesn't repeat itself. It's more like a kaleidoscope. You see
Yeah, that's
similar
kind
things.
of that's a good analogy.
That's the best
actually.
analogy I've ever heard. Just that you see things that are familiar and things that kind of make sense,
But they kind of mix up.
But
in
they kind of
different
mixed
ways.
up a little bit. Yeah, it won't. History never repeats. In other words, there won't ever be Nazis again. That's already happened. But there'll be things like that.
Like it won't happen exactly that way
Right.
again.
There'll be things.
It might
that-
happen again, but not
Yeah.
like in that exact same way.
But there'll be things like that. Will happen again. Just that it might not happen to the same people and in the same place. It's just not going to be the same
Yeah.
because it's always depends on the situation.
But it does help to know history because at least you know like
Yeah.
just the kind of gist of like
Yeah.
what happens in these kinds of situations. But like I said, because the context of the times are so different,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways there's really no way to predict. So I don't really know why you'd want to make your money like predicting stuff because most of the time you're going to be wrong.
I read Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire, the 3 big books, not the little fucking abridged one. And it's like a kaleidoscope. You think everything looks kind of familiar, but it's over and over again repeating itself. And it is kind of repeating, but not really. And you're like, oh, I bet you this emperor is going to do pretty good. And then you find out what happened to, oh, that's all? And then, they're in and out of there.
Yeah. There's just so many factors that you can't...
The main thread is that it was mundane.
Yeah, most
Mundane
things are,
shit.
Most things,
Over and over again, just mundane. Mediocre.
Well, like I said, that's why I'm not like a big advocate of these big like grand conspiracy theories
like a
and
big
stuff like that
finale and shit.
because most stuff is just kind of boring.
Yeah, boring.
And like a
yeah.
lot of stuff that happens is not really any one person's intention.
Right.
It's just people with either kind of gray or good intentions, and like it didn't go quite the way they wanted, and then like there was some other people that were doing this shit over here, and you know what I mean? It's just like there's too many people and there's too many factors to like really lay it at the feet of just like one thing. Like I said, I don't know if it makes people feel better to think that there's just one person or one like mastermind behind stuff, but that's very, very rarely like how shit happens. Like there's just it's too complicated. There's too much stuff. There's just too much stuff going on. So that's what I mean. So you can see why psychics hardly ever get anything right. Every now and then they get something right, but honestly, and like I said, I just kind of thought of like Jeane Dixon being like high up in the government and stuff like that, and like talking to fucking Nixon and J. Edgar Hoover and stuff like that, and she still got most of shit wrong. So that just goes to show that even people that are in power, they don't know what the fuck's going on either. So let's talk a little bit, just briefly, because I want to get to Miss Cleo. But I wanted to just touch on Allison DuBois a little bit because she kind of got famous mostly because of the TV show Medium that had Patricia Arquette in it. And she was another one that claimed to have helped out like in all these missing persons and murder cases. And they definitely portrayed it like that, like in the TV show, which I think was on in the 2000s, I want to say. I don't think I ever saw it. I maybe saw like one episode or something like that. But they made it very much like she was a psychic and she was helping out stuff, which... obviously, it's not really how the shit happened. She was tested by one dude at the University of Arizona who thought that her abilities were legitimate, but basically, I don't really know what his deal was because like a lot of skeptics came out afterward and like kind of ripped him a new asshole like about how the test wasn't done right and all this other kind of stuff, and maybe there were biases involved. But yeah, so she's from Phoenix, Arizona. And she actually, she dropped out of school but got a GED later on. And then she worked in the DA's office in Phoenix, like an intern. And then she got a BA in political science from Arizona State University. Now, she actually does not call herself a psychic. She prefers to call herself a profiler or a medium because she thinks that the word psychic has a negative connotation. And much like several of the other psychics we've been talking about, she said that she had psychic abilities from when she was a little kid. And one of the things, and I think they've highlighted this on the show too, was that she said that she was brought in not only on a lot of missing persons and murder cases, but also like in jury selection. Like she would be brought in to like select the right jury to like either get the dude convicted or get them off, like whoever like she got hired for. But like I said, a lot of this is kind of bullshit. Like this chick is still alive, so I don't know if she's gonna sue us or something like that, but seriously. So all the other ones are dead, but like, you know, she's still alive. And apparently, according to, because here's the thing, when I was looking for information on her, there's actually a really good like 4-page article that was written for the New Times, I think, like in I think it was Philadelphia or whatever, and it kind of goes into a lot of her past and stuff. But when you Google her, the main thing that comes up was that she was on one of those Real Housewives shows.
Yeah.
Real Housewives of wherever. I don't know. I don't watch that shit.
I never watched that shit either.
So I know there's a bunch of them, but I don't know where they're. But apparently she was friends with one of the housewives. And she was on either a whole season or one episode. I'm not real clear on that. And apparently she was a raging cunt on there. And it got like really, really, like it went viral.
Yeah.
So it's like now when you Google her name, that's like the main thing that comes up
yeah,
is like all of the shit
Yeah.
with her on the Real Housewives show. And it kind of ties into the psychic shit too, because she's like sitting there smoking or whatever. And she said, no, it was an electronic cigarette. It wasn't a real cigarette. I'm like, okay, nobody cares. But it's like she was making predictions about some of the other housewives on the show and like being really cunty and everything like that. And it was just like this big argument. And apparently like one of the other housewives, she was saying that's like you were raised by your grandma. And like the woman was like, well, I stopped listening to her at that point because that's not true. So it's like, so I knew she wasn't psychic. But she was like trying to, it seemed like from the quotes that I read about it, because like I said, I didn't see it. But the quote that I read like a transcript, and she was talking about, she was trying to like be superior to them because she's just like, well, I know all of this stuff and you don't know all this stuff because she's psychic and everything. And it was just, she came off as like just really, really like a real twat. Yeah. And so that kind of like went. Yeah. So now it seems like when you Google her name, that's like the main thing that comes up, I noticed. And it took me like, I had to go down a couple pages like on Google to find anything about like her actual psychic whatever. Because the show that was based on her, Medium, with Patricia Arquette was, I mean, that's been over for like a long time. That was like the 2000s. So I never saw it. I heard it was good, but I never saw it. I like Patricia Arquette though. So here's the thing, though. I kind of feel like one of the main things that she worked on was back in 2006, and it was in Phoenix, Arizona, and there were 2 separate serial killer cases going on, like at the same time. One of them was like a serial rapist, and then one of them was like a serial shooter, like he was just going around like shooting random people. So the cops had no idea what was going on. Like they didn't really have any leads or anything like that. So honestly, they were getting desperate. And so when she called them up saying that she could help them out on the case, I guess they kind of listened because they're like, well, we don't have anything else going on, so might as well. Because they kind of knew Medium had been on for a little while, for a couple of seasons at that point. So they kind of knew who she was because that character was based on her. So they're like, okay, well, what do you got? Now, she says that she called because she had a friend at the DA's office or the county attorney's office that asked her to call. And she said that the one killer that they were calling the baseline killer, she described him very clearly. This was her tip. She said, well, he's probably fled to California at this point. His facial features, she called it not tied to any race, but he had dark skin, but not necessarily black. That's what she said about the first guy.
See, he made him generic as fuck.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, the serial shooter guy, she said, well, I don't really get much of a read on him because he doesn't interact with his victims because I'm getting shit from, like, the victims. Like, I'm vibing. Right, that's what she said. Now, she said that the baseline killer, the first guy, she said he had long enough hair to tuck under a cap, that he had mommy issues, and that he would be arrested in August. That's what she said. Which, like I said, doesn't seem like much actionable information, but okay. Now, in her defense, she was right that someone would be arrested in August. But that was the only thing she was right about. In August of 2006, they actually arrested 2 white dudes. Yeah. A dude named Dale Hausner and a dude named Samuel John Diedemann. And they were the ones doing all the shootings and stuff. And then for the other thing, they arrested a dude named Mark Goudeau, who was a black man. He was a construction worker, but he had like super short hair. and he was from Phoenix. Now, he got arrested on a couple of the rapes, and there was a whole bunch of other charges going on, too. So there's that. And they asked the investigators, well, how much, stock do you place in, like, what she told you and stuff like that? They were like, absolutely not. It did not help us at all. So there's that. So another case that she supposedly worked on was in 1999. And there was a 6-year-old girl named Opal Jennings, and she got kidnapped from a lot, like an empty lot near her grandmother's house in Texas. Now, Allison DuBois said that she worked with the Texas Rangers and showed them where the body was buried. Now, she did this in August of 2000. Now, August of 2000 was already after the dude that did it, Richard Lee Franks, confessed. And they arrested him and they charged him and they put him on trial. But the trial ended in a mistrial. Now, he ended up getting convicted at the second trial and he was sentenced to life in prison. But the thing about it was that the dude had already been arrested, right? Like when she came and said, oh, I'll tell you where the body is. However, the information she gave, not helpful. The little girl's remains were found, but they weren't found until 5 years later, 2004. Now, Allison tried to backpedal and say that, oh, well, I gave them like an area within a square mile, but there's really no way of proving that because the Texas Rangers said that they never worked with her. So there's no way of confirming that or denying that. But like I said, it's just kind of, I kind of suspect that she didn't really have anything to do with it. She also worked in a case in the mid-2000s, about 2007. There was a 19-year-old girl named Jackie Hartman, and she disappeared in January of 2007. And at the time that she disappeared, police already suspected that she had been murdered by the dude that she was going out on a date with. Like, this was, she'd never been on a date before. This was her first date. And so they suspected that he was the guy that did it because he was the last one that saw her and no one saw her after that. So she was like a nursing student.
She'd never been on a date before? Damn.
Yeah, at 19, yeah.
Okay.
So, well, maybe her parents wouldn't let her. I don't know. Now, after the disappearance, Allison DuBois went on the Oprah show to talk about this case in particular. And actually, they had footage of Allison DuBois going to the gas station where Jackie was seen last seen alive. And the prediction that Allison made on this show was that she rolled down this embankment, like she was killed and then rolled down this embankment, and that there was a city limit sign like near where her body would be found. But that was about all the detail that she gave. Now, when they eventually did find her body about a month later, neither of those things were the case. There were no city limit sign. It wasn't down an embankment or nothing like that. And what's more, the dude that she was out on a date with, Jonathan Burns, was absolutely the dude that killed her. And he was later convicted of the crime and sentenced to death. Allison DuBois did not predict that, now did she? And the interesting thing about it is that DuBois put this case in quite a bit of detail in one of her books. And the victim's dad was surprised because he's like, she never talked to us, or we never knew that she was working on the case or anything like that. I didn't even know she was involved in this shit until the book came out and she mentioned us in it. I never talked to her or nothing. So the victim's dad.
She shoehorned herself into the case?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I kind of feel like that happens a lot. Like Sylvia Browne did that too.
Yeah.
She said, oh, I worked on the Ted Bundy case. No, she didn't.
Right.
No, she didn't. They're kind of it's kind of like the Warrens. But of true crime.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean?
The Warrens would insinuate themselves in it.
Yeah, every single famous paranormal case, the Warrens were suddenly involved even if they weren't even there. Yeah. And I kind of feel like that's kind of how you sell your brand, right? You have to associate yourself with high profile stuff.
It was difficult
so
to
people
check
notice.
back then. The average TV viewer, you didn't have internet. You couldn't check. You just went, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So millions of people would believe that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And only hundreds of people would know that it was not true. So you might as well lie.
Yeah. And the thing about it, like I said, is that people that would listen to what a psychic said are already kind of inclined to believe it.
Yeah.
So even if they get it wrong, people even won't remember, or if they get it right, they will remember. But you know what I mean? It's like I said, it's like a confirmation bias. So the thing about it, like the victim's dad said, I think that a lot of the information she came up with had already been on the news or like in the papers and stuff like that. And she kind of came out and said it like she was getting it from somewhere, but it's just like it was already published. So it's like I think she was just keeping up with the case and just repeating stuff back. So because like I said, even from the beginning, like as soon as she disappeared, they suspected that dude from the beginning because that was the last dude that had been seen with her. And that's pretty common to happen in murders. So it's like she just kind of went with that, like I said, playing the odds. So I kind of feel like she's another one that does that. I don't know what she's doing nowadays. Like I said, I kind of feel like a lot of shit happened after that Real Housewives of Wherever situation, which seems to be all over the internet, because that's literally the first 3 pages of Google, the Google search results were that, like just talking about her appearance on that fucking show. And I was just kind of like, is there anything about like cases she worked on or anything like that? I had to go back like 3 pages to find that because everyone was so excited about the Real Housewives thing, which I didn't really care about. But like I said, apparently she was like super cunty on that. But yeah. All right, so I don't want to talk about her too much because I wanted to get to Miss Cleo before we end up the show, because somebody asked about it. Well, hi. Bambi's down here. I wanted to get to Miss Cleo before we ended the show out because somebody asked about her. So Miss Cleo, if you don't know, I kind of feel like she was on those psychic hotline commercials like so much, like in the 90s and 2000s. And she was almost kind of like, I don't know if she wanted to say if she was famous, but she was kind of famous because she was just like on TV all the time. And she was like so distinctive with that Jamaican accent, which was fake, by the way.
Oh, Miss Cleo. You talking about
yeah,
Miss Cleo? Yeah.
I gotta go to the bathroom like really bad. I was just like waiting for you to come back.
Yeah. I had to check on the cooking.
Yeah, okay. We're gonna talk about Miss Cleo in the
Yeah. We'll talk about Miss Cleo when she comes back.
Yeah.
And I had a pot of butter chicken that I made down there. I was just heating that up. It's pretty good. Let's see what everybody's saying. Sebastian says that trillionaires don't rule the earth. Fucking hobos do. Then Victor shows up. Out of fucking nowhere, Victor Garcia shows up. He's going to tell us what made him gay. He said, if a medium can talk to the dead, imagine what a large could do. That's a good joke, man. That's a good joke. Got Case and Lee back with us. Haven't seen you here in a while, Lee. What you been up to, man? He said that psychic phenomena is real because past, present, and future happens at the same time in a higher dimension. People who can connect to those higher dimensions see everything. I mean, legit people. That's what he said. Yeah. I had a spontaneous out-of-body experience, 2 of them. And I did a show on it. And that's what I saw, too. Past, present. Well, there's no real... Well, past and future, I saw them as a whole, And I was outside of the space-time continuum amongst a bunch of other shit. Okay, Jen's back, so we'll go back.
All right. So yeah. You remember Miss Cleo from the...
Oh, yeah, I remember.
From the infomercials?
I remember her fucking, psychic hotline.
It was Psychic Readers Network.
Psychic
she worked for, which is one of those pay per, like those 900 number things.
Yeah, right along with all the sex numbers you could add.
It's like
it's back of the High Society magazines. You could fucking.
If you weren't alive back then,
yeah, it was ridiculous.
It's just so funny to think that what a big thing that was.
Yeah,
like because I used to stay up late at like all the time, like listening to music and doing various things, and so I'd have the TV going in the background, and it was just like all infomercials. And there were so many fucking 900 numbers. Yeah. And for everything, like psychics, the crying hotline, sex lines, like all kind of stuff.
It's 1-800, right?
1-900.
1-900.
1-800 is free.
That's right. 1-900, 3726 cry. That'd be the name of it.
Yeah.
And then they had a channel of just they had a commercial with some chick, some white chick, just on the phone on her fucking side of her head, just crying her ass off into the fucking phone. And you're like, what the fuck is this shit? You know, tell us your most fucking upsetting fucking. You know, they would.
I mean, I guess maybe it's cheaper than therapy as long as you don't stay on the phone too long.
It was just
because that was like fucking $4.99 a minute or
back
something.
in those days, and that was a lot of time.
Like you got the first couple minutes free, I think. But
Yeah.
But the whole thing was, and we'll get into
you're gonna
that
run
a little bit.
You're gonna run up $100 bill.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of the thing is like
Yeah.
Miss Cleo and like other the phone psychics and stuff.
Yeah.
Their whole thing was like to keep you on the phone as long as possible.
Yeah,
because you were paying like $5 a minute.
Yeah, and you know these are poor people.
Yeah,
watching unemployed people and poor people fucking watching fucking daytime television. And lower income people is what it was all, and you're gonna spend $100 on a damn telephone bill.
I saw
and that should come out of your phone bill.
Yeah,
yeah.
I saw like Simon Whistler did a thing about Miss Cleo, and he said that during the Psychic Readers Network heyday, like when Miss Cleo was on,
yeah,
the average bill was $60.
Damn.
People paying $60
Back
like
in
to
those
talk
days.
to a quote unquote psychic.
Yeah.
And most of them obviously couldn't.
They weren't
talk to
psychics. They were just people.
Well, no, yeah, and the thing about it was
Yeah.
that I mean, I'm sure no one here is surprised, but they would just recruit you through like fucking ads in the paper, just like any other regular job.
Yep.
And they would just give you a script.
And stick to that script.
They'll like stick to the script, whether it was like just the psychic shit or the tarot reading shit.
Yeah.
They had like 2 different scripts.
Yeah.
And they're basically just like keep them on as long as you can, and they'd pay the person, like the person on the phone, like the psychic, 24 cents a minute. So you had to keep them on, like you had to keep the person on like as long as possible. And it's like and the script is specifically designed for that, like to keep them on like one girl that worked for one of those, and she just got the job like I said, like an ad in the paper. It was like $12 an hour plus like additional, like if you could keep people on the phone a long time. And so she's like, basically what you would do is you would say, like if they seemed like they were gonna get off like real quick, like they just had a quick question, you'd be like, well, I can't really like feel your vibe right now. Like I have to kind of have a little bit of time to like get into your groove or whatever. Like they had this whole like thing set up. So the whole thing was like to keep them on the line as long as possible.
Yeah, I remember reading a fucking interview with some chick that was doing the phone sex lines. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like that too. They're recruited straight out of the fucking newspaper.
Yeah, just an ad. It's just a job.
Just an ad in the newspaper. You're right. And she made pretty good money at doing it back then. And she just said it was funny, you know.
Yeah.
And there was like a script that you would go through, and it's the same thing, totally scripted.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, the psychic lines were the same.
Right.
So, and the thing about it is, I think maybe because Miss Cleo became such a cultural, I don't know if I'd say phenomenon, but I mean, she became kind of famous.
Yeah.
So I think people thought that she like owned that shit.
You know, there's another thing that was
She
funny.
didn't though. She just worked there.
Yeah, another thing
she was
was
just like their spokesperson.
Another thing that was funny about the phone sex thing, if I remember correctly, those girls that were doing that were working from home.
Yeah.
The agency would call their phone number.
Yeah.
And
I
then
think
they'd
that's
pick up
what they
their
were doing
phone.
with this too.
They'd stay at home just picking up the phone and then giving dudes phone sex and then hang it back down and then it would ring again. And that's all it was.
Yeah.
There was no central
I
office.
think these worked like that too.
Yeah.
Like you didn't have to go. It wasn't like a phone bank.
Yeah, it's not like you had to go to somebody's fucking work or anything. You didn't have to go to work. You could do it from home.
Victor says my friend used to work at a phone sex line back when she was in college.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're good at that, like, why not? It seems like a pretty easy job. You just talk.
Yeah, your looks don't matter. Just you.
Yeah, you can just as long as you have kind of a
somebody
sexy voice, you could just like say some dirty shit over the phone and help people jerk off and just keep them on there a long time.
Yep, keep them on there and make a bunch of money.
You know what I mean?
That shit's gone though now.
Yeah, you don't gotta fucking do that
Replaced
anymore.
by StreamMate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Miss Cleo, you'll probably not be surprised to learn that is not her actual real name. Her real name is Uridel Harris. You'll probably also not be surprised to learn that she is absolutely not Jamaican. Because honestly, her accent was really not that great, to be honest. And a couple of times I remember, like, during the readings and stuff, like, she would just revert to her regular accent. She's American. I mean, she was born in Los Angeles. As far as I know, Los Angeles. And so here's the thing. When she was in school, she was real into, she has a lot of aliases, is one thing. And she was real into theater. And so she had a bunch of different names going for that. And she wrote a play in 1996 under a different name, under the name Ree Paris. And she wrote a play called For Women Only. And in this play, she wrote for herself and played a character named Cleo, who was a Jamaican woman in Seattle. So later on, when she got the job at the Psychic Readers Network, she decided to use that character as the psychic. So it was a character that she had created, but she was like not Jamaican, you know what I mean? But yeah, she was, like I said, she was kind of in the theater scene, and I think that in the late 90s, she actually got a grant like to produce a play, but she actually took all the money for herself and didn't pay the cast or anything. It just took off. So
embezzled that shit.
So you know what I mean? So she like, I think that was in Seattle. So she like took off with all the money. And the excuse that I love this. So the excuse that she gave why she couldn't pay the cast was because she needed the money for medical expenses because she had bone cancer.
Yeah, probably bullshit.
Yeah, it was. And so that's how she took off with all the money. She said she had cancer, and how could you dare ask me for money? You know what I mean?
Don't ask me money. I'm sick.
I'm sick. Yeah. I need the money for my bone cancer.
Yeah.
She did not have bone cancer. She did get cancer later. That's what she died of, but she didn't have bone cancer back then. So it was almost like karma.
Yeah.
She didn't get bone cancer. I think she got colorectal cancer. Ass cancer.
Ate that ass up.
Ass cancer.
Ass cancer.
So yeah. So the Psychic Advisors Network was started in early 1993. And this company was started to compete directly with the Psychic Friends Network, which you'll know from like the Dionne Warwick kind of shit. Now, this particular company had their own spokespeople, one of whom was Billy D. Williams.
Okay, yeah.
As well as Philip Michael Thomas, who was Tubbs on Miami Vice.
Yeah. So they're going for the black market.
Yeah, so they had like some famous
the black
people.
market. That's
the black market.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Psychic Friends had Dionne Warwick, so
yeah,
I guess they were going for that too.
Yeah,
I suppose.
Yeah, they were going for black single mothers. That's
I guess
what
so.
they were for. Yeah. So they put Billy D's fucking smooth ass up there,
selling some Colt 45
Yeah, it's Colt
and
45.
psychic readings.
Fucking right, psychic. That was when Billy was on his decline.
Well, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're becoming look, everybody got to make a paycheck. I get that.
Yeah.
But if you were once kind of a big star, you were once in Star Wars.
Yeah.
And now you're having to like shill for a fucking psychic reading network, then you're kind of scraping the bottom.
Williams was in a lot of cool shit though, man.
That's only one level above like hooking in the street.
Yeah, exactly.
Like sucking dicks for money.
Exactly. Fucking
pretty much.
Billy D was fucking great that he single-handedly fucking made fucking malt liquor a fucking mainstay of the American economy. Yeah, but that.
I mean, he kind of single-handedly sold that.
He sold it to me, and I'm a little kid. I'm seeing those commercials. Go, God damn! All right,
yeah,
cool. I want some of that Colt 45 too. Yeah, I want some of that too.
Well, like I said, when we tasted it on that sidetrack show, I was like,
good,
wow, that's surprisingly good.
Yeah,
I was expecting it to suck, but
it's fucking good.
Because I don't think
if you have a limited amount of money, all right, and you want a good tasting beer, you don't want to pay a lot, go for fucking
that is
liquor.
A perfectly serviceable, good tasting beer.
Yeah.
It certainly tastes better than like Budweiser. And
much better than Budweiser. Yeah. Yeah, dollar for dollar, man, you're better spent getting fucking malt liquor.
I mean, Budweiser doesn't really taste like much.
It's heavier. It's got a better taste. It's slightly sweet, but it's okay. You know what I mean? And it's got a nice Colt 45 high gravity. That shit was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. High gravity. Heavy.
It's just going to make you float.
Yeah.
Like in Willy Wonka when they floated up to the ceiling and had to burn and come back down.
Yeah. I think I said it before on the show. Malt liquor was originally marketed to the white customer, but they didn't buy it. They were trying to do it with James Bond type imagery, and the white dudes weren't biting. So they fucking said, okay, this is back in the day when advertising agencies knew how to target market. They could target a population. So they went back and said, well, we're going to target the black dudes. They came out with fucking Billy D and Colt 45. Colt 45 was, they started to sell that to white dudes. Then they came out with Billy D and him with those fucking long-haired fucking mixed sisters and shit in the fucking career. We're like, hell yeah, yeah, all these good-looking models
All right,
and
I'll
everything.
buy that.
And he's like, it's smooth and all that kind of shit. Yeah, it's fucking smooth. All right, man, I want some of that too.
It
Who's
is
that
pretty
chick?
smooth.
Yeah, that kind of shit. And then and that sold malt liquor. And
It's pretty easy to sell stuff to dudes.
Yeah.
Just put a chick with big titties in there.
yeah. Good-looking chick with big titties and long hair. And,
And dudes are like, oh,
Yeah.
I could sleep with that
yeah,
girl. I'm going to buy
Like,
it.
okay, well, it was a sex and power thing.
Yeah.
Colt 45, that's a fucking gun.
Well, yeah.
Okay, and then you had Billy D, smooth and shit with this hot chick. Yeah, guys would buy that fucking right. And the shit tasted good.
See, I kind of feel like if they wanted to market it to white dudes, they shouldn't have gone the James Bond elegant route. They should have gone the redneck route.
Yeah, that's what they should have. They went the James Bond elegant route.
See, I can see why that wouldn't have
It
worked.
didn't work that well. White guys were like, yeah.
They should have gone like the more white trash kind of route.
Yeah, they should have gone.
I
for
think that would have
fucking-
worked a lot
Should have
better.
gone like more like the Marlboro Man.
Mm.
You know.
Yeah, that would have
He's
worked a lot
fucking
better.
rough.
Like the
Yeah.
working man.
Yeah, working man.
The working
Yeah,
man,
He's
baby.
tough. You know that kind of shit.
He's rough and tough. He's out
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
fucking desert.
Yeah, with fucking and then you have some chick and Daisy Dukes, and that
Yeah,
shit would
see?
have that
Yeah, that would've flown.
That would have worked.
They were trying to make it classy, and it's
Trying to
not,
make it too classy.
It's not classy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it didn't have the classy price tag.
That's what I'm saying. And
Right.
honestly, you would think that stuff being low priced is
Yeah.
always a good thing, but not necessarily.
No.
Because sometimes if something is too low priced, people get suspicious.
They're suspicious.
Like
yeah.
they think it's like shitty quality.
Yeah.
So sometimes you have to, if you have something that's like really low priced and you try to sell it as classy, like
Yeah.
people will see right through that. They're
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's not.
Right.
I'm not buying that.
No, the brothers knew fucking cost effectiveness though.
Right.
For the cost, that shit tasted better.
Yeah.
So hell yeah.
Well, yeah, they
David
made
Parker, our friend
absolutely-
David Parker, that's what he drinks.
Yeah.
He shows up at the club with fucking
Colt
Colt 45, showing it to me.
He laughed
And-
his ass off when we did that fucking
Yeah,
show.
yeah. Big Tom drinks that shit too, the club owner.
It's good.
Yeah, it's good.
I was actually surprised
For
because, like
cheap
I said,
beer, that's the best beer you can get.
I don't even think that I had drank it before. But yeah, absolutely, like it's the best cheap beer that I've ever drank.
Yeah.
Like obviously, like the more expensive beers are better.
Yeah.
But if you only have a couple of bucks and you want like some okay beer,
It's much better than Bud.
then it's much better than
Yeah.
the other cheap ones.
Much better than Coors. Yeah.
Yeah, which to be honest, like those ones don't really taste like much of anything to me.
Piss water.
Yeah, it just kind of tastes like.
Let me
piss
go
water.
check downstairs. How much time we got?
Not much.
Okay, then I won't worry about it then.
Yeah, I've only got like a few more minutes. Like I
Okay.
said, I don't have like a huge amount of
Alright.
Miss Cleo, but yeah. So, so like I said, in '93, these two guys started the Psychic Advisors Network, which was competing with Psychic Friends Network. Now, a couple years after that, in 1997, Miss Cleo moved to Florida, and she met the two people. Like this was in Fort Lauderdale. Like they were cousins, like the two guys that started the company. And so she took a job there. So like I said, she didn't own the shit. She just got a job there like a regular ass person. Now she was doing the Jamaican accent and the character when she came to Florida.
Yeah.
So that was like her shtick. Like I said, she's from Los Angeles. She's never even been to Jamaica, as far as I know. She never went to Jamaica. So she works at this telemarketing center. And they basically asked her, because I guess she was so like charismatic and she had like the whole character thing going, because like I said, she'd grown up in theater and stuff. So they were doing an event in Pompano Beach, where I've been a couple times actually, at a mall, and she made an appearance there, and it was like really successful. So they asked her to be in an ad for the company. So it kind of came about that she sort of became the spokesperson for the company, right? And then she started being on the TV commercials, saying she was a shaman from Jamaica. And even like the website for the place, which this is a pretty early website, so it's probably like really shitty looking because it's like late 1990s. But they actually even had a whole backstory for her that she was from Jamaica and all this other kind of stuff, which obviously was not true. The funny thing about it was that I had forgotten that they did this, but I guess that when you were interested in it, they would send emails to people that Miss Cleo had a dream about you. Like, you need to call her. You know what I mean? Like, she's got some important shit to tell you and all this other kind of stuff. So she kind of became their main draw, I guess. Like I said, like the company spokesperson. Like, she didn't make... From what I heard, over the 2 years that she worked for this company, she said she made about $450,000 over 2 years, which is not bad.
That's pretty good.
I mean, that's pretty good money.
$200,000 a year.
But considering that the company itself
Yeah.
brought in about $1 billion,
Oh shit.
yeah. It kind of, and they claimed the rights to the character, even though she kind of came up with it. Which, as we'll see later on, like they kind of sued a couple companies about it. But yeah. The thing about it, though, is that the company, after a couple of years, got into trouble because, if you'll remember, like a lot of the commercials used to say free tarot reading, which it was free for the first couple of minutes, but then after that, it started charging you $4.99 a minute. And the thing about it, too, was that a lot of people were calling, obviously, because Miss Cleo was on the commercial, so they thought they were going to be talking to Miss Cleo, and obviously everybody can't talk to Miss Cleo, and there's like thousands of people calling, I imagine. So other people would have to answer it. And I don't know if they went so far as like to have some people impersonating her, but they did have a lot of actors reading from scripts and stuff like that. And one girl that I saw like a little bit of an interview with that had worked there at around this time period said, oh, well, they told us when we answered it, if they asked where Miss Cleo was, we were supposed to say she was on vacation. Like that she wasn't there and you couldn't talk to her. So it's like, because everybody wanted to talk to Miss Cleo, obviously. But yeah, so the company got in big trouble for saying that they were free readings and stuff like that, because they obviously weren't free. Like the first couple minutes were free, but then after that, they absolutely started charging you. So they got sued by several different states. And then in 2002, the FTC actually charged the company's owners with deceptive advertising, deceptive billing, and deceptive collection practices. Now, Miss Cleo herself was not involved in the shit, because even though she was the spokesman, and I know there's some kind of laws some places that say if you're a spokesman, like you're kind of liable to, but in this one, I think they didn't, she didn't really have anything to do with the practices or anything like that. So what ended up happening was that the company owners actually settled for $5 million. They ended up paying like a $5 million fine for all of the deceptive advertising practices they were using. And then they had to do refund checks, like to callers, and debt forgiveness and stuff like that. And that ended up being another $500 million. So this was like a huge company, as you can see. Now, it was actually during this lawsuit that the information came out and became widely known that Miss Cleo was actually not Jamaican, that she was actually American, that she was born in Los Angeles. And actually, the state of Florida actually sued her because they thought, as a spokesperson, she should also be liable. But that case ended up being dropped, so she didn't get charged for anything. But she did actually like lose her job, obviously, because they ended up having to pay like $500-something million. So she actually ended up starting her own company, which I will not even attempt to pronounce, in 2001. And as someone mentioned earlier, she actually has done some voice work since then. She did a character Auntie Poulet in Grand Theft Auto, Vice City. So she
in video games
and stuff like that, and she was a spokesman for that TV music network Fuse, and I think she did some commercials for like cereals or something like that. But like I said, the company sued because they said that they owned that character, so she wasn't allowed to do it. But she later kind of went on her own, I guess, and she didn't call herself a psychic anymore. She started calling herself a voodoo priestess, because why not?
Yeah, why not? Let's take it to the next level.
Yeah.
The next level of bullshit.
And I guess she kind of like used her notoriety from TV so she would charge like between $75 and $250 for readings, and she would also officiate weddings. Yeah. And she did a podcast for a little while. I think they're still up there, but I mean, obviously. But yeah, so she's been on, and actually I didn't know this, but they made a documentary about her in 2022. HBO Max did.
Yeah.
Which actually, maybe we should watch it. It might be interesting. It's called Call Me Miss Cleo. And apparently it's still on there. So it's like, yeah, I kind of want to watch that. And also this year, just a couple weeks ago, actually, Lifetime did a movie of the week called Miss Cleo, Her Rise and Fall. So we might want to watch that too. Like, I probably should have watched it before, but I just didn't have any time to do it. But yeah, so we're not the only ones that are like fascinated by her, apparently, because they've made a couple of like fucking movies about her. But yeah, she died in Palm Beach, Florida in 2016 of colorectal cancer, like I said, and she was only 53 years old, which is kind of shitty.
Yeah.
But like I said, it just seems like, I don't know. I don't know if it's such a sad end. She might have been doing okay at the end, but I feel like she got associated with this psychic network and people thought she owned it or whatever, but she didn't. She just like worked there. And like I said, she was just one of the people. Yeah. They just used her for a spokesman because she was the most charismatic and she had this whole character.
That's real common.
And I don't think she got any extra for that though.
Just cut her a check, one-time check.
As far as I know, like, so it's not like she made like millions of dollars because she was all over TV or nothing like that.
Right.
It's just she just happened to like be the most popular one, and everybody she kind of like struck a chord, and everybody called in wanting to talk to her.
Right, she wasn't there,
and you know, I mean, she was, but like you know, everybody couldn't talk to her obviously, so they had to like fob people off on other people, and you know, and like I said, the company ended up getting sued to fucking oblivion like later on because of their deceptive advertising practices about the free shit and everything like that. But yeah, so it's kind of sad what happened to her, but I guess she kind of had her own thing and people still like remember her, so I guess that's not too bad. But and she doesn't seem as shitty as the other ones because as far as I know she didn't like try to find missing people or talk about people that have been murdered or anything like that. I mean, maybe she did, I don't know, but she mostly just seemed pretty harmless.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's okay. But yeah.
All right, so let's go ahead and shut it down. I got food waiting for us.
Oh, all right. So
what's the next thing we're gonna do?
Sidetrack.
We got sidetracks this Friday.
On Friday night.
On Friday. We're going out.
We're going out Saturday night and Sunday night.
Okay. All right. So we're gonna be drinking with you all fucking Friday.
Man, we're gonna be drinking Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday night.
I can handle it.
All right, liver.
Okay.
Brace yourself.
It's okay.
Yeah, because this weekend's Labor Day weekend.
Yep.
So they're doing Saturday night like usual, and then they're doing a special Memento Mori on Sunday night because Monday is a holiday. Although I probably will still have to work anyway. But yeah, so thanks everybody for dropping by this evening. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. This was actually kind of a fun one to do because it wasn't so depressing. You know, I'm kind of glad I didn't pick more. I was gonna do like John Edwards and James Van Prague and like all these other kind of people. Then I was like, oh my god, I have to like fucking chill out. I can't. Like they all use the same tactics. They all use the same scams. So it's like I didn't want it to get too repetitive. So I just kind of wanted ones that I thought were like ultra shitty. Other than Miss Cleo, she seems like a nice lady. But yeah. All right. So thank you everybody for dropping by this evening. We will see you guys again on Friday night for the Sidetracks show. So hopefully you guys can all join us for that. And that'll do it. Have a good rest of your night and have a good day. Tomorrow we will see you guys again on Friday night.